Good evening and welcome to our board meeting. I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have just had a wonderful honoree from the Ojai Education Foundation, and we have many more to honor this evening, so forgive me if it's a little confusing as I go back and forth. We have a lot tonight. I believe there are no emergency modifications to the agenda.
There is. We have just a small change to the one page with the students who require the board authorization for less than full completion of physical education for medical reasons. So the agenda changed on the first page, and then that page is changed from the published agenda.
7.3.6 is an addition.
Yes.
So Thane is working this evening and not able to attend. We'll have to fill in his motions to approve things tonight.
I will consider both sides of everything.
I'll let him know. I'll need a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second? Michael seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Approval of the meetings from the open special budget session and closed meeting of April 25th, the minutes of the regular and closed sessions of May 2nd, and the special meeting of May 22nd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jennifer Patino is our student representative.
Okay. All right. Sorry for not being here for the last 2 months. I was busy, but I'm glad I'm here. Okay, so starting off with Nordhoff. On Wednesday, Nordhoff will have its annual awards night where students will be honored for their academic achievements and seniors will receive scholarships. This Friday, we will host the Matilha 8th graders at Nordhoff. Leadership students will take 8th graders on a tour, then give them a brief presentation in the gym. 8th graders will then sit in the freshman section and enjoy our senior rally. After the rally, the next incoming seniors, and the 8th graders will meet their senior siblings that they will be working with next year. Graduation will take place on Friday, June 16th at 6:30. A Place to Grow. A Place to Grow was voted Best Preschool in Western Ventura County in the Ventura County Star Reader's Choice Awards. The Places You'll Go is the theme for this year's promotion program on Wednesday, June 14th. There are just a few openings for the 2017-2018 school year. Safety Town will be happening June 26th to 30th with 30 children enrolled and 10 youth volunteers signed up. Miramani. Miramani has been extremely busy the last couple of weeks. PTO board members were honored at an assembly last week. At the assembly, the retiring custodian of 22 years was honored with a donut box containing a bag full of dollars, approximately $200, for donuts that were donated by Miramani students. Last week, First Friday food truck event and free movie were held. The movie that was shown on the big screen on the playground was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. The Miramani dancers, under the direction of Stephanie Holt, showcased Miramani dancers with a dance concert. Participation in this program is open to students attending all of our elementary schools. Attendance was standing room only in our MP room. The same night of the food trucks, dance presentation, and a free movie, the second annual school campout took place. Approximately 100 people stayed for the campout. They stayed in either an RV or a tent. After the movie watchers left, students camping for the night were treated to a scavenger hunt on the playground field. Using flashlights to find their way, the scene was quite comical. The third Saturday school of the year was held the following morning. On Tuesday, June 6th, students in grade 5 and 6 with good sportsmanship and attitudes during PE the school year will be riding their bikes to the Ventura Pier, eating a barbecue lunch in Foster Park, and then riding up the hill. Participation is optional. Approximately 35 students and 10 parents will be participating in this event. A representative from the mob shop will accompany the ride in order to help with bike repairs along the route. Open house will be held this Thursday throughout the evening. Students will be performing as dancers and musicians. The Ojai Baptist Church will be sponsoring the barbecue dinner being served. All proceeds will be donated to the school. Lastly, for Miramani. On Friday afternoon, teachers will be meeting with parents of students who have continued to struggle the last semester with academics or behavior. Teachers will be making suggestions for summer activities and program participation for the beginning of the 17-18 school year. Chaparral. Chaparral had a successful first annual spring open house May 23rd with more than 60 people in attendance. The atmosphere was friendly and casual, and we enjoyed a delicious taco dinner from La Flor de Michoacan, representatives from the Ojai Women's Club, who recently adopted Chaparral, joined in the festivities as well. This event was suggested and planned by students in Chaparral's student government class. Miners Oaks. Miners Oaks has awarded students who have not been absent from school and on time with monthly principal recesses this school year. To change things up a bit, for the month of May, any student who had perfect attendance will be receiving a certificate to golf and stuff. A mural was completed at the front of Miners Oaks School. It displays the animal and plants that can be seen in nearby meadow. It includes the mountain lion, frogs, Matilha poppies, and the hawk, just to name a few. The mural was painted by MB, I don't know how to pronounce this right, Hanrahan? Okay, but
well.
I tried. It was dedicated to Miss, oh my gosh, Demianos for 25 years of service to Miners Oaks. Matilha. 8th grade Rotary interviews went great. Matilha Junior High School will be visiting Nordoff this Friday, June 9th. 8th grade promotion dance will be held this Friday, June 9th from 7 to 9 p.m. in the gym. Toba Toba. On Monday, June 5th, 6th graders enjoyed their end of the year party at Forest Home. They enjoyed ziplining, rock wall climbing, human foosball, swimming, and so much more. They had a great time. Wednesday, June 7th, Gold Rush Days. 4th graders rotate through authentic activities from the Gold Rush Days. Friday, June 9th, 3rd trimester assembly. Tuesday, June 13th is the 2nd grade play, and Wednesday, June 14th is the 1st grade play. Thursday, June 15th, the kindergarten promotion ceremony is at 8:30, and the 6th grade ceremony is at 9. And that is it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to ask you to stay through our public comments because I do have an extra 10 minutes tonight.
Okay.
I promise it won't be long.
Alright.
Just stay for just a little bit. Public comments. I believe do we just have one? Yes. Jeff Palmer.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Palmer. I'm the general manager of the Ojai Sanitary District, and I'm here sort of on official business, not on Measure J stuff. The Sanitary District is in the process of getting approval from the state to bag and give away our compost. Just like you buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's or anywhere else, you can come and buy a bag of compost for your vegetables. But in order to do that, we have to get our bag approved by the state. And so we had to come up with a design. So one of our engineers, Liz Dubrin, who's actually a Nordoff grad, went to the high school and worked with the high school graphic arts class, and all the students put together a design for our bag. And I have here, and I want to pass this around, some of these designs. I was stunned. This is great from the students. I'm an engineer, I can draw. A horse looks like a caterpillar to me when I draw. But these were some fantastic designs. I don't know how to pick one. We're still working through that, but they were fantastic. So it's something where it just sort of grassroots started because one of our staff wanted to reach out, and the students did a great job. So thank you to all of them. There's not one, we have to get one approved. We can't do rotating bags because the state has to approve it. But we're going to try and figure out a way to come up with a way to recognize all the students who did these and display them, because it was a great thing. So I wanted to hand these out, have you look through them. We'll pick one over the summer, and you'll see the bags out there in the community with one of our students' designs for the bag. So great job by the kids.
Hey, Jeff, we're in the spirit. You're leaving our Citizens Oversight Committee, right?
Yes, I am.
And I'm sure we all agree, you did such a great job while you did it. We're sorry that you can't continue to do it. And this is probably the moment that we would have to say thank you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity from all of you and the direction you gave to the Oversight Committee. It was a pleasure to work in a very cooperative and close way with staff and you all, the board. I think we've got a good start. First 2 years under our belt, so to speak, from the committee. And I'm glad to see the progress we've made. And I told Andy if they need more help, I'll be happy to help out. But I'm kind of tapped out right now, and hopefully we'll keep things on the focused path. But thank you.
So, special presentations. I want to begin with thanking Jennifer for serving as our student representative this year. I know it's a very difficult job to come into sort of this adult world and read about schools that you didn't know what they were doing. Not a lot of time to prepare for it, and I know you came in your cheerleading uniform sometimes, and you came with the homework backpack ready to go home. So we are, as a board, presenting you with a plaque thanking you for your service. And I wanted to read a little something that Bronwyn wrote about you, just because she couldn't stay. She says, Jennifer has been an outstanding member of leadership and our senior class president. She has been a peer tutor all year at seminar, working with students with disabilities. She's been a cheerleader and been a model of school spirit. She is by far the most kind student I have ever had the pleasure of teaching, with a strength of character rarely seen in someone so young. We will miss her.
I just want to say something real quick if I can, and it builds on what Ms. Cole said, and it's hard to build on what Ms. Cole Michaels says. As you know, she really is the heart and soul of the school, and she knows what it takes to build culture. And so I'm going to tell you something that I believe absolutely is true. Seniors have the opportunity to create the culture of the school. And that culture is created usually by one or two people, positive or negative. I've never seen someone do it as well as you have. You have elevated, for lack of a better phrase, the moral, spiritual culture on our campus to a place that no one else has done. I've been there for 21 years. So I just want to make sure you understand that you have left us much better than you found us. You really do have an incredible impact, Jane. And so it was mentioned, I think, Jane, you said about being in the adult world. Just know that there are adults around you who are in awe of what you do and are respectful of what you do. And so, and look up to you. I look up to you. So thank you, Jane.
And on top of that, she's Miss Teen Calabasas. Just to throw another log on the fire.
Thank you for staying.
Thank you.
Can't get a better exit than that.
Our next recognition is of our retirees. We have 3 retirees this year. Should we do each one, just
Sure,
list them all,
sure.
or each one? How do
I just do them, alphabetically the way they sit, and Greg's going to start with Tom.
Okay, so Tom Friedman from Nordoff.
Tom?
I've known Tom for a decade, slightly more than a decade, and I want to make sure I do the best job I can at communicating how I professionally feel about him, but also how I personally feel about him. Let me tell you a few things that you might not know about Tom. Tom has a master's in English literature. Did I get that right? And so his emails are just works of art. They're works of art. And not only are his emails work of art, and I'm not kidding when I tell you I often read them twice just because they're so good. It doesn't matter what the topic is, even if it's as mundane as extra duty timesheet or something. They're just so beautiful.
They're all fiction.
And I think that and I have people wander into my office every now and then, Greg, and the people I love talking to, honestly, I love talking to. But my conversations with Tom are just elevating for me. They are so enriching. He has a beautiful mind. And so I just I don't know if I ever told you that, but just on a personal level, I have loved my interaction with you when we strayed into all the topics, philosophy, literature, theology, whatever it is over the years. I'm going to steal a phrase that Hank said once, and you're the kind of guy you'd want in a foxhole. Just somebody who you just know has the kind of depth and character and your ability to bring light to a dark, difficult subject. Just somebody you would want in your life, and I have felt like that many times. He is always willing. He is always at prom, taking pictures for kids. He's at graduation video. He doesn't know the word no. And we've tried to find the boundaries. We've asked all kinds of things of you, and you've never said no. And there's no length that you will not go to spending hours upon hours upon hours. If a student just wants to get it right with video production or whatever, you are there. So you're just one of the sweetest men I know. And so we happen to be parting ways, but not really, because you're going to stay at Nordoff and continue to sub and be with students. And I know that those people who will stay there in my absence will be better for that. So thanks for all, everything I've done for us.
Can I say a couple of words?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Please don't
Of
cringe.
course.
Okay.
Because you're also getting a
Thank you.
certificate from OEF for dinner.
I thought this is chocolate. Thank you. This is great. That's very
Thank you
nice.
for your
Thank you all. Well, I've been here 11 years. After a career of 30 years in Hollywood and 7 years in ABC television, I learned more during the 11 years at Nordoff about my own field than I knew from all those years working in the field. And I think the major difference, well, two things. One, I had to, that's my phone. So, as Einstein said, you don't really understand the subject until you can explain it to your grandmother. Stop. Yeah, sorry. I promise you they're trying to sell me something I don't want to buy. So having the discipline, having to explain it to kids, really made it much easier and allowed me to learn in a much greater depth than ever before. And just watching all the kids zoom ahead, discovering things that either I was behind on because they were all born with a silver computer in their mouth, and I wasn't. I was from an earlier generation, so I learned a great deal from working with the kids. And I also learned a great deal about public education. I was a product of public education, but my daughter went to private schools all the way through college. And it was really only when I came to Nordoff that I really began to understand the quality of the people on every level who are working there. The teachers are outstanding, unbelievable. It's incredibly dedicated people. The faculty, the administration, the district staff, fantastic. All the people who work and support in various ways are really outstanding. It's a tremendous example. And I see people who are like, they're saints. I mean, it's amazing how much they give to the process. I regret that I didn't have the wisdom to get into it 20 years early, because I still could have had 20 years in the profession, and therefore I could have taught a career tech ed class, but I would have had the advantage in my life of having this environment, these colleagues, this campus, and so on. So that's a lot. I'm sorry. Thank you all very much.
And retiring as custodian for Miramonte is John Gonzalez.
Well, as I was driving here from Miramonte today, I thought, and it hasn't really, I'm going to get teary-eyed, John. You're just going to have to deal with it. It hasn't really struck me yet, because he doesn't leave until the end of June, that he's really going to leave us. John's been with us for 22 years. I had the good fortune of being involved when John was hired for the position with Larry Hartman. He's been my lead custodian for 17 years now. This is going on 18. You could not ask for a better person, a more loyal, proud of Miramonte employee than John is. He jokingly calls our school the Starship Enterprise. And I know he truly believes that's it. Oh, John, I can tell all kinds of stories. I think he's going to laugh. He's a hard worker. He recognizes things that need to be done before I say anything or anyone mentions it. If anyone is walking past him carrying a heavy object, John, let me get that for you. He is just a kind person. He's also hysterical. I don't want to say hysterical. You can't be careful. I know you got to live with him after, right? He is a very funny man, though. And things can get very tense at school at times. You know how that goes. And John will look at you, and I'll be in the middle of something super, super serious, and he'll go, "You did a great job with your hair this morning." You know this line? Okay. So he always has some way of just breaking the tension and making everyone just relax a little bit. He's had a number of different custodians that have worked at PM shift over the years. I don't even know how many. We've had a lot of them. John has always had to mentor them. He's been an excellent mentor. As I said, he's always helpful with everyone. The kids think he's hysterical, and they're always up to something. He, as was shared earlier today, for his going away gift from the students, they collected dollars for donuts. And so they gave him in the assembly on Friday. We had to trick him to get him there, because the other thing John does not like is he doesn't like attention like he's getting right now. The fact that he is here right now is amazing. He does not like that kind of attention. So we tricked him, sent the child that we knew would be the most serious and convincing, because we knew he'd be looking at her, trying to figure out whether or not this is true or not, to let him know that a first grader had just thrown up in the front row of the assembly, okay? So the kids the leadership kids had a plan. We said, if we get him here, and we sent Maggie, and if you know Maggie, you know she'd be very convincing. And he told me after, you sent the right kid, because I believed her. I told the leadership kids, when he walks in, you are to block both of the exits. And they did. They threw themselves at the door so that he could not leave before we had the opportunity to present him with his money bag with a donut on the front of it, of donut money. So that was absolutely fabulous. John is a practical joker, so there are frequently times that things come up around our school that he might have had something to do with. Like all those years of my phone being unplugged and never knowing who unplugged my phone. And then I got even with him for about 6 months by unplugging his mop handle every day.
I learned the hard way.
And then it was on to the next employee he decided to mess with, and then they would mess back, and so it went on and on and on like that. John doesn't like to get his picture taken. So I have pictures now because you were so polite and allowed Ojai Education Foundation to take your pictures. So we do have some really good pictures of John. But if you look back into the 22 years of yearbooks we have of John, you will find when you look under John Gonzalez's name, there's someone, but it is not John. Send him in with that picture you get from Life Touch. You know, the little card that says John Gonzalez. And go, come on, do it.
Probably
And so we
George
had-
Clooney.
We have, let's see, Augie. Well, Augie was 1 year. John Gonzalez in the yearbook. We have a teacher's son in there who was 1 year. We had the milkman that delivered the milk. It was at 1 year. I mean, it is hysterical. If I took all those pictures of John Gonzalez out of the yearbook and just laid them out on the wall, it is hysterical. I think the only year we actually had John was a baby picture that his wife Vicki sent to me, so that one went in the yearbook that year. So, John, I just want to say thank you very much for all of your years of service. I can't imagine what it's going to be like without you at Miramonte. You've done an excellent job, and I'm extremely fortunate. We are all extremely fortunate, and thank you very much. John, would you like to introduce your guests?
Oh yeah, this is my wife Victoria, my granddaughter Alana. They have
Would you?
Oh.
John won't talk, but I will.
Okay,
I just want to thank this lady and all the teachers that work for Miramonte with John. I mean, you guys have been so wonderful to him and to us. I can remember, when Alana was 4 years old and my grandson was 6, and we ended up getting custody of them, legal guardianship of them. So John, I guess he told you and the teachers and what have you, that we were doing this, getting legal guardianship of them. And they threw him a baby shower. He told me, he goes, Vicki, you know what they did? You forgot.
right, that was fun.
No, she goes, you know what they did for me? They made me sit in the middle of the room. And I'll never forget that. I thought that was the sweetest. And then when John came home yesterday Friday with that bag, oh my God, that was so touching. I was like, really, John? These kids went out and just donated? And believe me, when he opened that bag and threw it, it looked like thousands of dollars. But literally, I took all the ones, and John made me go to the bank because his wallet wouldn't hold all those ones that were in there. And there was like 172 ones.
Yeah.
That they did through that machine, and that was just so heartwarming. So, when I lost my mom, my dad, everything that we've gone through in our lives, you guys somehow have always been a part of it. So thank you, and thank all the teachers, and he'd come from Christmas, and it's like, oh my God, what did they give you? Because the teachers would give him gifts and cards, and the school has been super, super good to him, and I thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I think she said that John had served for 22 years, also serving for 22 years at Miners Oaks, Martha Lapine, our kindergarten teacher, retired. And she is going to be honored by Mary Jane McCall, who is another retiree. So hi everybody, I'm Mary Jane McCall. I'm retired from Miners Oaks School, almost 3 years now. And this is Martha Lapine, my dear friend. And did you want to introduce Greg? Or?
Oh, and Greg is here.
Greg is here for Martha. Greg.
Some of you didn't know Greg.
Okay, so I've written something because I don't think I could do this without just reading it, so forgive me. But so my name is Mary Jane McCall. It is my honor to introduce my dear close friend, Martha. And Martha has been teaching at Miners Oaks for 21 years.
My heart was there a year before.
Yeah. She did teach 4 years before that at Santa Paula, and she also substituted for 3 years. So you may have substituted in Ojai.
I did. Yeah, I did. So that was
Before
fun.
that, yeah. All of her teaching experience was in primary grades, but she did teach mostly kindergarten at Miners Oaks. Martha shared with me that when she was offered the kindergarten position at Miners Oaks, she actually dreaded it. She hadn't taught kindergarten before. But one of the many joys she discovered in kindergarten was being allowed to sing out loud freely with her class each day, and all the children happily joining in. This was a revelation for Martha, who did not have confidence in her singing ability, because allegedly, at home, her daughters asked her not to sing. Sorry.
They asked politely, but they asked.
I hope they forgive me for saying that. I just, having taught kindergarten myself, I completely understand that joy. So Martha, or Mrs. Lapine as we know her at school, is a role model of humility and selflessness. And she has a gift of making those around her feel so valued. She calls her students friends all day long, even during that last exhausting half hour of school. She really does treat them as friends.
The tone might be different.
Martha is humble, steady, intelligent, caring, and a compassionate listener. She is the kindergarten teacher we all wish for our own children. And I mean that sincerely. Martha, all of the students and your colleagues at Miners Oaks will miss you terribly, but we all wish you exciting new adventures. And we hope you and Greg will soon get to travel when it's not July and August. I've heard that's what the both of you are looking for, to travel when it's not July and August. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much. So that's really what I want to say is thank you. It's been my good fortune to be a part of this community, and I mean Ojai, but I also mean this community here. Public education and Ojai Unified. It's really important. Thinking of my kindergartner students, what we do is really important, and supporting it is really important. But I think we feel it's been our good fortune. Also, just the job is. And I'm thinking about kindergarten is endlessly interesting, right? And you never watch the clock, and even on the toughest days, there's always something to laugh about at the end of the day when you're teaching kindergarten. So thank you all so much. Thank you.
And actually, was it this year that Martha and Greg were?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was this year that Martha and Greg were identified as the Educators of the Year by the OI Education.
Greg Lapine, not Greg Bayless.
Greg and Martha Lapine.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Strike that.
We're going to continue with recognition. It's just an evening of fun. And we have 2 classified employees of the year, 2016. They were nominated and won in all of Ventura County. This is not just an Ojai Unified. And I think, Andy, are you going to be presenting?
I'll introduce the award, and then we're going to have Rebecca actually come up and speak.
Okay.
So I'll just say I started here 2 years ago, May. So this is my first board meeting in June. And this quickly has become my absolute favorite. I think that all of us are seeing just how incredible staff we have across the district. And this is just such a special day. We're able to honor both our classified and certificate staff in the Ojai Unified School District. It's been going on for quite a while, but only in the past 2 years, actually, even more people outside of this valley are taking notice of just how amazing our staff are in this district. And so the state puts on each year a classified school employee of the year recognition statewide. It starts off as a county level recognition, so each district is responsible for identifying candidates for the recognition based on various categories. The district will forward their nominations to the county, and then a panel of HR representatives from across the county sit in Camarillo and go through the applications and the recommendations and are able to select the candidates who later go forward to the state competition. And so very exciting this year. We have 2 of our employees who were selected from all of the county staff, more 10,000 employees in public education in the county, that we have 2 who are recognized for incredible service. And so Rebecca's actually going to come in and talk about the first, Sandra Johnson.
And I have my phone not because I'm expecting a phone call, but because I just got some comments from one of your colleagues that I want to share with you. Sandra, I actually one of the people that nominated you for this award, so I'm very happy to be up here and talking about you. Merv said that, as you're one of our OTs, he said that not only stands for occupational therapist, but outstanding teammate. And he said that Sandra and I have worked together with our youngest students at A Place to Grow and our oldest students at Nordhoff. And her ability to teach students and support teachers always impresses me. I have always appreciated the time and attention she provides to everyone in the classroom, students and staff. Her words of encouragement after a rough day, her insights into classroom management, her ability to stay calm in some very difficult situations, and most importantly, her friendship have all had a tremendous impact on everyone fortunate enough to work with her. From my perspective, Sandra is the ultimate professional, and she models best practice every day. She's thoughtful and creative in coming up with solutions to meet the needs of some of our most challenging students. I've been told she's even refurbished a wheelchair for one of our students. On the weekends, you might see her shopping for peanut butter pretzels for a motivator, or special beanbag chairs that we might need for some of our fragile students. And she just always goes above and beyond. She's also spent countless hours volunteering for our school-based Special Olympics, and including participating on the committee that that launched our first games in Ojai. Her colleague, Amy Mulhart, describes Sandra as by far the best OT she's ever worked with. She's extremely organized, willing to help both students and colleagues. She has taught me, Amy, so much over the past 9 years and has made me a better OT. So on behalf of the district, I'm proud that you're getting this award.
Say a few words. Am I okay?
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, this is my 10th year here in Ojai. I was previously at a bigger district in the county, and I came here because I wanted to bring my daughter, who at the time was in 4th grade, to this district. So I started at Miramonte in 4th grade, and she graduated last year from Nordhoff, and she did incredible. And I'm so thankful because I knew this would be a great district for her, and she did excel. But as far as my job goes, it's hard for me to get recognition for something that I feel is just my job that I love. So I don't view it as going above and beyond. I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And how do you not stop thinking about your kids? You just don't. So obviously, it's kind of like your own children. You just go out, and if you see something that you think might help somebody you work with or help the kids you work with, you certainly just want to get that and try it out and see what happens. It doesn't always work out, but sometimes it does, and it's great. And so I just feel like I've been so fortunate to honestly, probably what I feel have the best job in the district, because I get to go to so many schools, work with so many teachers, so many kids, so many staff members. So I feel like I have so many families just throughout. I guess I'm just fortunate because not everybody gets to do that. And it's been really, really great. So I appreciate this. I really do. And Rebecca, I'm so happy to have you coming in as my new boss. I think it's great. And thanks again. I really appreciate it.
I'll just share as well, Linda Lagos was recognized as the Nutrition Service Worker of the Year for the entire county. And so she has been at Myers Oaks for 21 years, so District 22 total. So we happen to see Linda. Please congratulate her on this honor. Just like many of our classified staff and all of our staff, very humble person who didn't want to come and be identified amongst the group. So if you do see her at school, please recognize her. This is a terrific honor she's deserved. Would you like to say a few words, Jim?
I have had the pleasure to get to know Linda. She's an outstanding employee. She is definitely a team player and a hard worker, and we're so happy that she's part of the nutrition services team. And she's very honored to have received this award, and we are very proud of her.
In keeping with the theme, I'm actually going to move around from our agenda and move to item 7.3.5, which is honoring some people who are going to be leaving our district and a change at Nordhoff, and I thought it'd be appropriate to do it at this time. So we're going to start, I guess, with the action item, or do you want to, Andy, talk about the new appointment?
Sure. So 7.3.5, Nordhoff High School principal. About 12 days ago or so, we found out that Greg had accepted an incredible opportunity to go down to Ventura Unified. I'm sure we'll have a chance to say a few words about Greg, so I'll hold off on those for right now. But tremendous shoes we knew we were going to have to work to fill. We knew immediately that we had a couple of very strong candidates in-house at Nordhoff. We knew that Dave Munson as assistant principal would be obviously a natural choice. However, Cheryl, our new assistant superintendent, and I really wanted to make sure that this was a decision that was not simply the next one up, but really making sure that we chose the right candidate for this position and go through the process of those stakeholder meetings and really meeting with families, with faculty, with district administration, special education, general education. And so last count Cheryl and I had, it was somewhere around 23, 24 meetings or phone calls that we ended up holding over a 10-day span. And the theme that quickly came out was that Nordhoff is doing so many great things right now, and again, largely under Greg's leadership, but really it's the entire faculty just have a great program going despite some real challenges of continued declining enrollment. And so really what we were hearing was we have a great program, and we have an even stronger candidate internal that I think, as I started to hear, especially from staff, that everything shy of we'd like to have someone who has a spouse who's an administrator in the district also was pretty much what I was told. It was pretty incredible how every attribute that was being identified by the staff and by parents also as we talked with them, that just so clearly fit Dave Munson as being the right candidate for this position. It's incredibly unusual to have someone who has the experience he has. He's been a department chair, an athletic coach, athletic director, served as dean and an assistant principal, both on the discipline and the instruction side. Have I missed one of your, I think those are the, well, certainly teacher, yes. So obviously in his 18 years in the district, has held almost every position that you can, and just has an incredible vision into the site through those experiences. So again, incredible experience, but really more so what we heard as we were meeting with the families and meeting with faculty is just how important the relationships are in the Ojai Valley, especially at that school and some of the challenges it has forthcoming. And it was unanimous that Dave has just forged those relationships that are really just a testament to his character, to his leadership, to his compassion. You know, when I talked with him the other day, I shared that an adjective that he had not previously been associated with, he said, but it was a unique combination, almost a little bit of a teddy bear, but also someone who could be, a real, symbol of strength and of,
a grizzly bear?
What's that?
A grizzly bear on the other side?
Yeah, exactly. He just really exudes a servant leadership is what was coming through when we were having those conversations, as someone who he really is able to show, again, a very strong leadership, but also really is able to have that intimate one-on-one conversation with someone get to really share his heart and really try to get to the heart of of the person he's speaking with, whether it's a 14-year-old child going through a challenging time, or a parent who's wanting the best for their child, or a faculty member who he's counseling through what they're going through in life. So everything we saw throughout those meetings, those emails, those phone calls, were all pointing in the direction of Dave. And so yesterday, Cheryl and I and Hank went to the faculty meeting at Nordhoff High School and announced that Dave will be the next principal, to a absolute resounding applause. And so, Dave, we congratulate you, and it is my recommendation to the board that he be formally appointed as the next principal of Nordhoff High.
So I guess it's not normal that you would bring it to us, but we wanted to sort of show our support for all that's happening across the district. I mean, 5 of our 8 schools will have new leaders next year, and I think this sort of is the capstone of that for us. And so to sort of say that the next year is complete, we think, we'll be taking an action to approve his appointment as the new principal of Nordhoff. We have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed.
So earlier today, Andy and Jane and I met. We always do that to go over the agenda, be sure we have our ducks in order. Yeah, you were one of the ducks, and we have a couple of other ducks that we're going to cover here in a few minutes, but certainly want to give you an opportunity to say some words. Remember, you're on TV now. This is not just the Nordhoff staff meeting here. You're big time Channel 10. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks for setting the stage for me. Well, it is an honor and it's a privilege to serve as the next principal of Nordhoff High School. First of all, I humbly accept. But really, I think what people have seen in me is what I've seen in other people, is that there is so much commitment and love for not only Nordhoff High School, but for this district. So I'm really encouraged that though we lose a great leader in Greg Bayless, he's left us in a really good spot. So I feel really encouraged of what we have moving forward. So I have to say, I just have to say that I look forward to the excitement, but also the challenge of leading Nordhoff High School into the future, knowing that we have done such a great job of building some great programs, but also recognize the fact that we are facing a smaller school population, and so to be able to balance those two, where I feel that we have offered a private school setting in a public school campus. So I look forward to all the great things coming forward for us, and I want to thank you guys for showing me your support. It means a lot, because not only is Nordhoff a great school, I really feel that Ojai Unified is a great small district. So thank you.
So that was 7.3.5. So now we're going to A, B, and C. The A is the I'm going to say just better half of the Munson husband and wife team here. When Robin was appointed, not technically by the board, because that's going to be done later time when all of you are gone. It'll be long gone by the time the board does that. So you are on the personnel report. I want you to know that. So when I went in to congratulate Robin, she told this story. I don't know which of your children said this, but it was a classic of out of the mouths of babes, where it said, well, let's see, Mom, if I understand that you're going to be teaching principal, you're going to be principal of San Antonio, and Dad is still an assistant principal. Does that mean you can boss him around?
That lasted about a week.
Right. We are pleased to have brought back equity to the Monson family. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So that was 7.3.5A. Now 7.3.5B, as Andy said, we've had a couple of weeks here to deal with the fact that Greg is going down to Ventura, which means we had enough time to get you a plaque. Okay, so when we get to the last piece, 7.3.5C, Kim, yours is on order. Okay, we'll get to you soon. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up with all the chess pieces over at Nordoff. Greg's had, as he said yesterday at the staff meeting, quite a couple of weeks, and I know how you feel having been in a place as long as you were, and then moving on to another place. I had the joy and the difficulty of experiencing that. I also had the opportunity to participate in Greg's moving to Ventura, so I'll take some responsibility for that. So if you want to throw eggs, you can do that later. Because I had a chance to write a letter about him. And I'm not going to quote you the whole letter, which by now I have pretty well in my memory. But two things I wanted to tell the receiving group at Ventura about him. One just generally completely ticks me off. And that is, he's so good at everything he does. It just really, it really bugs me. He's yeah, you too. I know. Kate, you know from which I speak. So, and I just sort of surrounded all that he does. I call him a Renaissance man because, he's an academic. He's a great speaker. He's a great writer. So I know a lot of people like that. But then he also is a great musician and he's a great dancer and. He can sing. And as Kate, I'm not going to tell the story about what you told me at our dinner about how you ended up getting married. You can tell that another time. But in any case, he really is. He surrounds so many different genres with excellence. But above all else, he's two things. One, he's an educator, and that is, as I said in an email recently, what I really find fabulous about the job he's going to, because he's done the school leadership thing, so he understands now what it means to run an organization, and he has done that for 5 years. But really, I can't even begin to tell you how hard it was for me to convince him to leave the assistant principalship and become a candidate for the principalship, because he felt he was leaving the educational side of the house. And that really isn't true, but I could understand that. And the only thing that was harder than that was getting him to leave the classroom to become an assistant principal, but I can't take responsibility for that because he already did that by the time I came. So that's one of the two things. But the last thing is shown here in front of you, including two children who are beautifully matched with their shirts. I don't know what happened to the oldest guy. What happened to you? You leave the house. You leave the house. Leave the house too early. Middle school. Oh, middle school. That answers that. In any case, but I'll just surround it by saying, and I really said this in the letter, if you can believe, this is a letter to the superintendent of Ventura School District. I said, in my dreams, I said to my wife that when I come back reincarnated, I want to be their fourth son, because they go to places. He and Kate take them to places that you can't even imagine. It's not like 5-star hotel kind of places. It's rustic, but really incredibly interesting. So, great dad, great husband, and just a Renaissance man. So that's, in addition to running the school beautifully, as Dave said, those are some things that I will take from my 8 years with him. So, Greg, I hope there's some things you want to say.
Well, first, thank you. And I'll start with this, even though it feels obligatory, but I really did have the good fortune of coming into administration the same time as you, leaving the same time as you. And I don't think that I would have ever considered being principal. I don't think I would have ever considered going on in administration had it not been for you. Not only your encouragement and coaching, you never micromanage, you always help me think things through, help me consider options, and I learned a ton. Like I tell people, I sort of got a second doctorate in my work under you. So I just, timing is magical. You can't control it, and my timing into administration was just perfect. So I really thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm fond of saying that Nordoff is the school that I wish I would have gone to. and I really mean that. And so now I look back and I sort of feel like I did go there. I'm a student, I'm graduating, and I think about my teachers, Marilyn and Jack and Steve, and even John showing me how to teach, and Kim. So I really feel as like the students, I think, feel. And there's so many students that come back, my former students that I've got to hire. I got my wish in a strange way. I got to be a student and go to Norwalk High School. So I'm better for it, and bittersweet stuff. So,
Want to tell the people who's here?
Sure.
Okay.
My lovely wife, who also taught at Norwalk for many years, and also was a student there in a sense, learning with Marilyn Smith, and so we are, again, we're both very grateful. These are my three sons. Eye contact. Merrick, Asher, and Anders. Merrick is going into 6th grade at Cabrillo Middle School next year. Asher is currently in 3rd grade at Loma Vista. And Anders, what grade are you in?
2nd.
Going into 2nd grade.
Yeah,
Going into
that
2nd
counts.
grade next year. So, thank you very much to the board. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Andy, and Hank, for my time here. So, down the hill to the big city.
So, okay, that was cool.
Can I?
You may. We have something for you.
Thank you very much.
So I'll just introduce the last 7.5.3C. And it sort of goes this way. Kim and I have had some great conversations over the last 8 years about the dance program and all the things that she does, which are pretty miraculous, given a limited budget for some of the things she does. And she's engendered all kinds of support in the community, as I know you know, and among parents. And she will describe for you the nuances of the position to which she's going in a leadership role in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. But all I can say is when she shared the job description with me, a job, by the way, that hadn't been there before. I mean, it was written, and as when I read it, and I said this in my comments in my letter about her, it absolutely was written for her. There's nobody more accomplished with whom I've worked in the area of performing arts as a leader in this particular high school, and she has become, very recently, a leader in career technical education, so much so that the county director leans on her all the time for support. So I thought it was just a matter of time before the Santa Barbara people realized that. And she was selected in a very competitive environment, as was Greg. But I don't want to steal Greg's thunder because, as he said in the meeting yesterday, he's known her for 2 decades, and I'm sure there's some things you'd like to say about it.
So I told the story yesterday. That, so I was hired. That John and Kim were both hired at Nordhoff High School. Unbeknownst to the administration, they were dating at the time, and they got.
We actually put a fast one on Steve Bennett of all
Very
people.
sneaky. It's very
If
sneaky.
you know Steve Bennett, you know that's really not possible. So, yeah.
And I was living in San Luis Obispo at the time, just graduating college, and I was thinking about staying on at Arroyo Grande High School or coming to Nordhoff. And Steve brought me in, sort of what I've been doing with new teachers now. And I remember being in actually E2, which is your room now, department meeting, just meeting these people, going, this is a place I can grow, this is a place I can stay. I can really find a home. And I didn't know how right that was. And Kim, I think you were department chair at the time.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And
We were all part of that
we just sort
legacy
of passed
plan
it all
for
back
Steve
and forth
Bennett.
to each other. But you were just so important to me in my early years. I know that we team taught psychology
When I was very pregnant with my
Yes.
soon to graduate child.
And her daughter was that's graduating this year was the flower girl in our wedding, and I kicked her in utero in a department water polo match, and that just turned out so well. I take a lot of credit for that.
I still heard about that.
But what Kim has been able to do from scratch at Nordoff High School, and let's just talk about one of the 12 things you've done outside of counseling, all those sort of things. It's really remarkable to start a program from scratch during a declining enrollment environment where it's just been, you could have grown it bigger, quicker, but understanding the way things were, you managed it so well. And now it really is a marquee program of the school. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's a lot of hard work on your part, it's a lot of passion. So I think it's really, really true that what I said, I think it was an email to someone else. I said, much of what Nordoff enjoys, and much of what Nordoff is really a product of the Hoys. Think about what John has been able to do in the history department, bringing in such great people and showing us, teaching me, and then obviously what he's doing in drama and what Kim has done in so many areas. Nordoff is a Hoy school.
Well, actually times 5 this year, but yes.
That's right. Yeah, it really is. So, it's sort of interesting that we're taking sort of similar positions.
We
and
are. We're still going to be CTE buddies.
That's right. So, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I have absolutely loved my time here.
I told myself I wouldn't cry. Truly, loving dance has been honestly creating the program I wish I would have had. It's still that to me. Nordoff will always be a place that I will absolutely cherish and value and protect, even though I'm not personally there. When I think about like the core mission of what I've been dedicated to on a human level is just about making wonderful moments for kids to feel like they are cherished and valued. That's to me been the gut level, what I've been willing to work for the kid who might never get that opportunity. It's the kid who always wanted to dance but never could have the access or never could have somebody give them that gift. And really that's all about them finding the light in themselves. And so when I think about leaving, I get to have that sort of fairy godmother vibe now. Early in my dance teaching career, somebody else did that for me, somebody who knew a whole lot when I didn't know very much. And just like Steve Bennett and some of our other mentors, Leslie Ogden, Jack and Marilyn, there were people who step forward and step into that mentorship role. And if not for that person, I wouldn't know how to write a grant or how to go and ask someone for money or how to write an annual appeal letter or how to get up and talk in front of all of you. So I am excited about my new chapter because I get to be that fairy godmother, not just here in Ojai, but also in Santa Barbara Unified School District, a district of 15,000 kids. And if I can leave you with any message, it's their commitment. What really struck me was the commitment to a comprehensive visual and performing arts plan, which I look at that and I think, wow, what kind of magic will that bring to those elementary and secondary kids in that district? And can I be a part of making that magic happen? So please know it was the most tormented choice I've made in my adulthood, because I knew that I would leave a place I love and people I love dearly to do something else that I love and will love dearly. 25 years ago, as a student teacher at Santa Barbara High School, I ran the Santa Barbara High School dance team. And I worked with kids who were exceptionally poor and who all they wanted was a chance to go do something big and special. And it's always stuck in my heart that that's where I feel like
we make magic happen for kids. So always helping them to find that place where they can shine. So I just want to thank everyone for their tremendous support and understanding, and know that even though I'm in Santa Barbara every day, I live here, and 3 of the pieces of my heart will always be at Nordhoff, at least for the next 3 years, if not maybe the next 15. So I definitely want to thank you all and encourage you guys to consider keeping those wonderful arts and technical ed programs as priorities for our kids here in Ojai. I will always be an advocate and speak for that. Thank you so much.
Just put a PS for a second. So Kim, one of the things I know I've said to you 5-10 times when I've seen these dance concerts, and I think it speaks exactly to what you were talking about. I can't tell you how many times I've seen girls on that stage who had anything other than a stereotypical dancer's body, and I felt that was remarkable. Really, whatever you did to get them to do that, the self-confidence that it took to get up there, I just thought that was amazing. John, thank you for coming and all that you've done, and I couldn't agree more with what Greg said about what you've done with the drama program. Good luck in Nebraska in a couple of weeks, right? We want to hear how that goes, you know, one of the things that Kim had to deal with, of course, was not being a mom, you know, at Nordhoff for the next few years, but she was for 4, and John's still there, which is more than most kids get, right? Most kids don't get a parent at school, right? So you're in great shape. And last thing is, you know, 5 years ago, I was telling the story at the staff meeting yesterday. 5 years ago, we had 3 fabulous candidates for the principalship at Nordhoff, and each one brought a tremendous skill set, very different, and it just makes me feel really good to see all 3 of you now doing what I think each of you will do exceptionally well for the next period of time, however long that is. So congratulations to Dave and Greg and Kim.
I would like to give sort of a 60-second opportunity for people to get up and go home if they had other plans now that their favorite person has been honored. So if you want to sneak out, we'll give you that chance. Thank you for coming and honoring all these wonderful members of our community. Okay, welcome back. Our core group here. 6.4, we're going back. Approval of Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report. Action item. Andy?
I'm sorry?
We're going to be talking about the Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Yeah, so we had our 3rd meeting of the year was held last Thursday. At the meeting, prior to the meeting, a few emails had gone back and forth. Jeff Palmer, the chair of the committee, had put forward a draft to the committee members. There's a few wordsmithing requests they'd sent to me, so I provided them an updated version on Thursday. They approved the annual report. So just a reminder, each year in May or June, this will be coming forward to you. That's the purpose of the Citizen Oversight Committee. Statutorily is to receive the actual audit from our auditors, both the financial audit and the performance audit, which is completed typically in January or so. So they receive that, and then subsequent to that, they will also review the expenditures, review the projects that we've completed in the prior year, and ultimately complete this report that goes to you. So this is the first of many annual reports. Unfortunately, the nature of having to wait until the audit report comes in January means that by the time that you'll be receiving this in May or June each year, it's already 11 months past the actual fiscal year that was covered during that period. So this is covering that first fiscal year of the bond where we only had $68,000 in expenditures, and those were largely associated with either Balfour Beatty helping us with project planning, or with DSA closeout. So those are really the 2 primary expenses. And so you'll see that the report does give a positive certification that expenditures have been appropriately allocated, but they also give this COC is incredible skill set, incredible background that each of the members bring, and so they want this to go beyond the statutory requirements, and you'll see that they provide some additional commentary and really want this to be a community tool that one can reference when wanting to know, why have we not done more at this point in 2017, or what are the, what's the background and process for closing out DSA items that are 30 plus years old? Some of those type of questions that we actually have added as a Q&A, and so it's a document that was 5 months in the making, and ultimately, again, is coming to you now for receipt and approval, although, again, the COC approved it last Thursday.
I just had one question. On page 14, it mentions a grant writer. Did you say we already had hired someone?
Yeah, so we've used Sierra Watershed Progressive. That's the group that David White from the 7-Eleven Committee had been encouraging us to partner with, and we have partnered with them on an initial grant that we submitted approximately, actually it's coming up on a year ago. We were not funded into that grant, but we've been working closely with the state, and they've made a few requests for us to make a few revisions, but we've been given very positive feedback that we will likely receive some funding in the future if we continue down this route. So at this point, we don't have a contract with them for a set dollar amount for future applications, but we actually had them with us at our library planning committee meeting, so that way they can help us identify the types of projects that could qualify, and they're giving that to us time for free, and then once we actually identify projects, they'll help us with the grant writing to submit to the state. So that's Regina Hirsch and the Sierra Watershed Progressive.
Could you give more detail on the DSA closeouts and the $250,000? I mean, always, just every time I read it, it really sticks in my craw. Because again, to be clear, this is work done by other construction folks, other architects from the past who never finished the work in the proper manner, and now we're left with this massive bill.
That's correct. Right.
So more to the stuff that's still not done.
Is Ron back? Okay. So we had 31 claims that were outstanding when we had the Measure J pass back in 2014. Those claims dated back, or those projects dated back to 1988, and so again, nearly 30 years old. Some of the lower hanging fruit were simply, documents that we had that just had never been submitted, and so once we went through our archives, we were able to find a document, submit the $500 application fee to reopen the project, submit our documents, and it was closed out pretty quickly. At this point, the type of outstanding projects are requiring actual destructive testing of buildings to verify that certain connections were made or to verify a certain type of bolt was used. And so what we're having to do is bring in either Ron or a combination of Ron and an architect to develop plans or various, engineers to actually analyze the structures that we have in place at our sites to verify certain building components, and then in some cases go back and create plans for a project that again was completed 20 plus years ago, so that way it can be submitted to the state with the proper change order.
So when we're creating plans, those are being done by this, is it
Jeff Tesori.
Tesori?
Right.
Hadn't we hired some other architect originally to do the DSA closeout?
No, he's been so CCM.
Yeah, it was one of the ones who presented themselves as a potential construction manager. I thought we ended up hiring, when we hired Belford Beatty, I thought we hired somebody else who put their hat in the ring for DSA closeouts.
Yeah, that's CCM. So Jeff Tesori is an architect that works with CCM.
Are we mostly paying architect fees rather than sort of hourly fees for some of the CCM?
Yeah, California Construction Management. The fees, as far certainly right now the fees are going to the actual creation of plans that were not created or submitted or retained from 15 to 25 years ago in projects. So that's really where the that's what's causing the project cost to rise to the level that we're projecting of nearly $250,000 to close out these projects.
Are we doing them one at a time, or are we hitting them all at once?
Well, we're working through all of them as we can. Some of them are natural, maybe at 3 separate sites, but the same type of issue. And so if we were able to find one of our former inspector of records who were able to actually have go back out and look at all 3 of those issues across 3 sites. Other cases, they're completely separate types of issues. And so again, we're trying to work through all of them as quickly as we can, and where we can find efficiencies by going to projects that are sufficiently similar, then we're doing that.
Is there any way to push back at all on DSA? I mean, for example, I've seen and heard of people whose homes are supposedly, not fully certified as having been, built according to code, and it's really the county's problem with the record keeping rather than the person whose house is deemed, out of the code, or at least without proof. I mean, is it possible some of this stuff was done and DSA just doesn't have records of it?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have records either. At this point, the 11 outstanding projects are ones that we cannot find sufficient documentation either, and so we believe that DSA's claim is accurate, that we did not submit the proper change order at the time that the work was completed. I'm not familiar with the district that's been successful in challenging DSA. There's no question that DSA has developed a reputation for not the best record keeping, but there's not been a district that's been successful, to my knowledge, in really fighting that to success of being able to have a claim closed out.
It is one of those frustrating, like when you get a bill 2 years later for something.
Right, in this case it's 28 years later, right?
And as to the report, I love the fact that the Citizens, for those who haven't read it, the Citizens Oversight Committee had like, however many, 9 really good questions, and they said, you know what? The community should have these questions answered, and you did an excellent job answering, but it was a great approach to it. I was also wondering, is any of this part of a pre-formatted document for a Citizens Oversight Committee report, or is this is all from scratch?
This was a lot of feedback at the meeting in February. Jeff took it, ran with it. He did use, as a little bit of a basis, a combination of some Oak Park's former reports and Simi Valley's. But really, it was Jeff, and then sending it out to the group, and the entire group being participants. But no, this COC was incredible with the level of work that they completed to get this 14, 15-page report completed.
Were these DSA claims not finished because the dollars ran out, or somebody just didn't, or we have no idea?
Well, so I frankly can't speak with certainty as to what occurred here that long ago. What I know is that it was very common throughout the state. This is not an issue unique to Ojai. What was happening was that DSA had policies on the books that they were not enforcing for decades. And so districts and their architects or their inspectors of record were choosing not to finalize that last step in the process, because there's no teeth to any of the the laws that were on the books. And so it was really as a direct result of the economic downturn in 2008 and the need for state departments to reduce in staffing that DSA, it was during that era that DSA really said that we're going to start going after districts who 20 years ago didn't close out projects. And so at least that's the timing component. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding they all of a sudden have gained a far greater concern for the safety of our students across the state, but certainly timing-wise, it happened to coincide at a time when they needed some extra money, and so they started enforcing something they had not previously.
And so what, I'm assuming that we now put safeguards in place to not have this happen again.
Absolutely. So that's part of the role of the COC. They'll be receiving every project that is required to go DSA. They'll be receiving updates throughout the way, and we'll receive, actually as part of the reports that Ron and I provide to them, the evidence of closeout. We also, COC requested that we actually have on the Measure J website page evidence of each of the projects that require DSA submission, and giving updates along each of the steps, and ultimately again showing evidence of closeout on our website for all all to see once it occurs.
And therefore it's an electronic file.
Precisely. Yep.
Any other questions?
Just along the lines of what Kevin was asking, I presume there's no appeal for undue hardship.
No.
Because if we're having to disassemble our buildings to prove that they're assembled properly, I mean, it's sort of counterintuitive.
Fortunately, we haven't had to go to that level. The destructive testing more is actually cutting a hole in a wall and looking at the structural connections and verifying and having an inspector there who's able to sign off saying that he has verified that connection point. But it truly is incredible the authority and ability that DSA currently has to impact school districts.
Well, Ron's here now. Ron, when we have a whole bunch of items, are we at least able to have DSA come on one day and then go and do a whole punch them out?
That's kind of what we're doing right now. We've got Frank Hoffman coming out. He's the DSA principal inspector. And we just did, Okatoba went through and made an assessment of what needed versus what the plans required and what was done. So there's a lot of accessibility, a few connection items. I do have some at Matoaha and Nora. We're looking to get access underneath, see if we can find the connections for air conditioning units or platforms, how they're attached to it for the plant, so we can get closure on that. Making sure that all the connections are there, and if not, they will have to be added. If they aren't, then they are, then you can close out that portion of it. So basically, it's with classes being here and everything, we're having to do it in the evenings, from 3 o'clock on. So it's kind of an ongoing process. So it's not a complete day that it happens, but we're getting quite a bit of movement on it lately.
So, of course, the most important item to point out is that we have no cause for concern that any of our buildings or structures are actually unsafe, even though they were not closed out by DSA. We've yet to find an instance of where the proper steps were not actually followed. As far as the integrity of the building, this is really a paperwork issue. Although it is possible that with like the HVAC units that, there may be actual work required for us to confirm that, the
Call Augie.
right, exactly. But yes, despite these uncertified projects, there's not been a single instance where we found that something was done incorrectly that required us to actually go back and change the integrity of the structure, or change the connection of an HVAC unit or anything like that. So we do not anticipate that being an issue, but certainly it's possible that DSA could ask us to go back now and change the way the HVAC unit's connected or otherwise, one of these projects.
How solid is the December 18 tentative completion? That's like a year and a half out.
Ron?
I think it's a realistic projection on that. We have all our difficult ones are left right now, the ones that have the most involvement, i.e. Okatoba. There were a set of plans that were approved by DSA, and they didn't appear to be a follow-up, so they made a second set of plans which were approved by DSA, but DSA is going with the original plans. So basically what we have to do is retro the newer set of plans in, which match the conditions now. So there's a lot of unknown items there that we're trying to resolve, if you will. It's just a matter of like the lead shelter, testing of the bolting. We need to have a torque wrench on it and testing it. So that's in the process now. We can get to it. It's very easy to get to, but it's not resolved yet. Some of the access to the back building, they've shown a path of travel which does not meet ADA requirements. We may have to go work on that to modify it to meet ADA requirements for that.
For that year or for current ADA? That's the big question.
For whatever the plans were requiring at that time. So we're hoping to get that set of plans replacing the original set of plans they approved and they were supposed to have gone with, and they go, no, we don't want to do that. We made a new set of plans back 15 years ago, which were actually followed. And DSA doesn't like that. So we have to get our plans to match what they approve, et cetera, and then which matches existing conditions. It's kind of conundrum. And then as far as the air conditioning items, even if we did have to add a connector or something like that, once it's open, it's not that difficult to add it. and retrofit it. So hopefully that'll resolve it. We just had one resolved the other day, actually yesterday. All it needed was paperwork. So we're whittling them down. We had about 31 to start with, and now we're down to about 6 or 7 left. But the 6 or 7 left are the ones that are most involved with odds and ends that take a lot of DSA paperwork and resubmitting and changing, and they thrive on a sea of paperwork. So it just just going through and all their little forms that they need, and so it just goes back and forth. So it's time consuming. But the folks we've got working on it are really, really, really good, and they're getting very good resolution for it. So it's really moving.
Yeah.
So I think it's realistic for the 2018, and we're going to probably get it done.
Thank you. So when you say, for instance, that no, the DSA won't approve any new projects until these are all done, does that
So
mean
they have that authority. What we've been actually seeing in other districts is that, because again, we are not unusual in having this number of uncertified projects. If, let's say at Nordoff, we were focused on the library for our next large project that will likely require DSA, and there were an issue over at the gymnasium, which fortunately we don't have an issue at the gymnasium, but if we did, what we've seen other districts be successful with is, especially when they show a pattern being able to close out projects, the fact that we've closed out 2/3 of the projects that were outstanding in the past 12 to 18 months, they see that we're taking it seriously, we're working on it, and what they'll focus on is if you have a project that's on the same site but it's not in the direct path of travel, then we'll allow you to focus on instead really the path of travel from the public ingress to that actual building, as opposed to stalling the ability to start any project until the DSA issues are closed out. So fortunately, because of Ron's leadership over the past 5 months, we're able to find a number of very necessary projects for the summer that didn't actually require DSA submission for the most part. So we haven't actually encountered that issue yet, and again, we're confident that we'll be nearly closed out by the start of next summer. And so we may not have to worry about negotiation, but that's a very common practice this time, is negotiating with DSA to have them allow us to work on one project while continuing to make progress on the uncertified ones.
How much are you able, Ron, to do some of the work that CCM had been doing before you got on board? CCM or
Danica.
Belfort Beatty?
Danica?
No, Danica with CCM.
Danica. Basically, I'm going through and they give me lists of things to look at and find out, and I've been going around and verifying items for them so that we can get the inspector out there to take a look at it, so we have a better idea of what's there. And a lot of times they can take and mark stuff off the there. The retaining wall again at Topa Topa that ran the full length to the back by the playing field, and they went ahead and added on another 65 feet to it. And basically, that's just okay, it's there, it's done for the plans, it just needs to be documented, that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of footwork and photos and give them information back and forth right now.
So Ron's certainly able to coordinate when we're trying to, if we had the inspector come on in Topa recently, I know that he coordinated with Cheryl. So coordination of projects, absolutely Ron's taken care of. But Danica, who's with CCM, has a highly specialized skill set that,
Danica is a person?
Danica Wood, yes. That's the woman who
There's
is
also
with
a
CCM.
Danica that did the Delink.
Delink.
Yeah, that's very confusing. Wow, there's specialists also knowing how many kids we have.
Danica Wood is the DSA closeout specialist for California Construction Management. And so she's who's been taking the lead on these projects from the beginning. She's been the sole person that's been the CCM primary contact for the past year and a half. So she's down at DSA at least on a monthly basis on our behalf. She's at DSA on a weekly basis for other districts, but again, she's and often goes down to San Diego because just the way DSA works with their regional centers. LA is known for being the most challenging to work with and to actually pull reports, and so she'll make the drive down to San Diego, not charging us, fortunately, of course, but that's where she will work with the districts that she's working for. She works with the San Diego DSA office, even though she's based out of Irvine or something.
Needless to say, I mean, same theme as Balfour Beatty, as much as we can do in-house.
Of course.
I just hate to think of people on just feeding at the trough,
Right.
sending us bills every month.
Certainly. Absolutely.
And what they're doing is very, very, very specialized. There's no way I could possibly do what
Yeah.
they do, but I do support them as much as I can and get them the information so they're not spending their time doing that. So basically, we are doing what you're asking there. I do a lot of
Minimizing.
support for the architects who are having all these projects designed. I'm doing a lot of legwork for them so that they don't have to do it, and that saves us a considerable amount of money. They are very expensive hourly.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have not
That's the
enough
intent.
resources for everything we need, so
Right.
every nickel.
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the annual report from the COC?
I'll move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. 6.5, approval of new members for the Citizens Oversight Committee for the term 7/1/17 through, is it a 2-year?
2-year term.
2-year. Okay. And I would just like to say thank you to everyone who served on the original 2 years and those who are continuing and the 4 new members. So we are still at a group of 9. And obviously we really appreciate the work that's been done.
Should we read the new group?
Sure.
So all these, the old one, the former have served 2 years, correct? Yes, I'm saying that.
So the first 5 alphabetically are continuing. Last 4 are new.
So Phil Carruthers, Dennis Court, Bob Daddy, Josh Griffin, and Dave Entner will continue. I guess Linda wasn't on before,
No.
was she? Yeah. And
That's
then
not
Linda Jordan, Salvador Rivera, Jenny Rockefeller, and Susie Taylor will join them for a total of 9.
So, I'm sorry, it is an action item, so if I have a motion to approve the new members?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. 6.6, the LCAP plan. Marilyn, welcome.
We're continuing with the theme of fun. The LCAP is really, as you know from before, it's really a process of collaboration with community, all educators, teachers, all staff, administrators, employees, parents, and students. So you'll notice, I think you got the plan last Wednesday. It's 68 pages, so hopefully you had a chance to review it. It's a new template. This is the 3rd template out of 4 LCAPs. So the first year we had, when we wrote the 14-15 template, was 1 template, and then for 2 years we had the same template, which is very nice. And then this one is a new template, but I actually, if you remember last year's LCAP, it didn't have the narrative boxes like this one has. This one has the narrative boxes, which I really think helps the reader to navigate through the LCAP, because what went well, what's the greatest progress, what are still some needs, those kinds of questions, budget questions, did you meet your budget, or what things didn't meet the budget. And so I really do think it helps the reader to navigate.
It was much easier to read.
Yeah.
And I remember last year you were talking about, first it's asking you what you're going to do, and then it asks, you sort of, it was a little backwards.
It was very backwards, not just a little. And this year it just flows because you have the summary on those first 4 pages, and those are all in portrait. And then you go to landscape, and then you have just a very brief budget summary on pages 4 and 5. And then you go to the annual update. What did we do in 15-16? How did we do? What were the metrics on which we based those actions and programs? So it makes the most sense. It runs more chronological than it has in the past. So I think it's really easier to read. And then on 21 and 22, you go into your stakeholder engagement. And remember, the stakeholder engagement is probably the most important part of the process. You're talking to community, you're talking to parents, you're talking to students, and you're talking to staff. And that's how you develop those goals and actions, which start on page 22. So you have your stakeholder engagement. You talk about things that could be done. How was it done in the 15-16 year, or 16-17? How are we doing, and can we do better? And so the stakeholder engagement comes right before the goals, actions, and services, and those are the new LCAP, the 17-18 LCAP. So I would.
Can you tell me with the stakeholder engagement, kind of a progression of how we're doing? Are we getting people to come to these meetings? Have we done better in the past, or is it falling off?
Stakeholder engagement, it happens in our district. For the last 4 LCAPs, we don't get a huge turnout, but I think, well, I don't know, maybe we need food or something, but you know, it gets people to meetings if you have food. But the people who come are pretty passionate and they have a lot of good ideas. So maybe we don't get quantity, but we get quality. And we have other things besides just stakeholder meetings. For example, I think most of you were at different back to school nights, and then I handed out the brochures that we handed out at back to school nights. And that went real well, because I would have staff come to me and say, oh, I had a couple parents who mentioned something about the LCAP, and they learned about it from the brochure. So it's not just a meeting that's titled stakeholder meeting, but it's every interaction you have, whether it be at school site council, that's another venue where we talked about the LCAP, PTO, PTA meetings, ELAC meetings, DLAC meetings. Those are the meetings with our English learner parents, ELAC at the site, DLAC the district. And so it's not just a meeting that's titled stakeholder meeting. I think.
Can you be more clear about, so if it's a PTA meeting, are there PTA meetings where you come, or you come to all the LCAP meetings?
Yes, I'm at all the meetings where I've put LCAP on the agenda. So, for example, at Matilaha, we had school site council, and so you have, you're half parents, half teachers, and I was on the agenda. So Javier let me have a few minutes on the agenda to talk about LCAP. And usually I talk about kind of a mini version of the LCAP. I don't want to overwhelm them with a 50-page document. I just talk about more or less the highlights that were in the brochure. The goals.
I might have missed it. It's obviously a huge document, but is there some place in here where we kind of take credit for X number of meetings on these dates that constitute LCAP meetings? Or no, it's just
yeah, that's when you go to pages 21, 22, the statute, Kevin, does not say you have to have X number of meetings. It says you must engage parents, staff, community.
Got it.
Yeah.
And this is the list, though. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, do you ever get any community members? Somebody
yes.
who does not have children?
Who does not have children? Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes. I wanted to point out just a couple of what I think are high points of the new LCAP and the new goals, and as they were as the result of stakeholder meetings. And one, if you go to the goals, actions, and services that start on 22, so that's goal 1, starting on 22, page 22. Go to 1.5. This 1.5 is increasing technology access for all students. Do you see that?
What page am I on?
33.
That's what I wondered.
It's 1.5.
Okay, I got that. Oh, here we go.
Uh-huh.
Okay, 33.
So it's a new goal. And it's a new goal because everywhere, anytime we had a stakeholder meeting, I think we had 3, this was pervasive, technology access for students. At school site councils, and I went to at least one school site council at every site. Again, technology access. So those kinds of things, we knew we wanted to add that as an action, increase technology access for students. So that was a direct result of stakeholder input. Another one was 1.6, right? That's the next one on page 35. This was another common theme in the elementary. So if we were talking to elementary staff, if we were at school site council at elementary sites, a common theme was we really need to focus on getting kids to read before they enter 3rd grade. And so we've made a goal to focus on early literacy in the primary grades. And again, it was a result of stakeholder input.
Andy, does Measure J allow us to just do something as straightforward as buy Chromebooks?
No, we don't be allowed to purchase technology infrastructure improvements, but we wouldn't be able to purchase Chromebooks.
Has that ever been tested, that distinction?
Well, it's based on the actual language of what we. Right. So Measure J, we did have a specified number of or specified listing of types of projects that we could work on, and technology equipment was not identified in our bond measure passed by the public.
Okay.
But now there are other districts, like Oak Park actually did a bond that was focused on technology exclusively, and so they were focused on infrastructure improvements as well as the actual hardware to fill a school with.
Was there a limitation, or we just chose not to put it in there? Is there a legal limitation that would say that for that particular kind of vote that you can't have technology?
Not that I'm
equipment?
aware of.
No.
We just had enough projects.
We could have. We just had, the other 75 million.
Well, you could do it just for more flexibility.
Yeah, well, that's a great question because there was nothing there in that bond issue that was, I would call, instructional or broadening of student activities oriented. For example, turn back the clock or have the clock go forward. If you do a 2022 or 24 bond issue, you could do something like the pool, or the next iteration or 2 or 3 iterations of technology. But or some of the other 75 million that we didn't do in 2014. But no, we were counseled to keep it in that $35 million range, and we just never even considered a couple of $1 million a year or whatever for technology. But we've been able to scratch it out a little bit, Dave or Sig. We've been able to do it through various means, but nothing of the type that you would get through an Oak Park kind of technology bond.
Well, while we're talking about money, Andy, on page 4, it says the district spent about $135,000 more than budgeted for differentiated instruction and multi-tiered system supports. So how does that happen? Like because we're going to be talking about the budget for next year, and I assume Maryland's, in these goals, it says how much we're going to spend. 55,000, so what she has here is reflected in your budget that we're going to be discussing.
Right.
But what happens when something like this? I mean, how does the district spend an extra $135,000?
Is that Title 1?
Yes. Well, it was several fund sources. So in that part that you're talking about increased and improved services, the district spent about $135,000 more than we budgeted for differentiated instruction, and most of that came out of Title I. So
is that because Title I came in at a higher?
Right. Remember, Title I at budget adoption last year was about $130,000 less than we actually ended up finding out a few months later we were going to receive as entitlement. And so we received a much larger Title I entitlement this year, and anticipate that going forward.
Title I?
Yes, very restricted. Right.
Is that use it or lose it as well?
No, we can roll forward up to 15%.
15 or
15, 1-5. So on a corpus about $500,000 revenue source, we can pull forward about 75,000.
That's still pretty much use it or lose it, 15% on it.
But it was a nice, almost a windfall because of the census, right, Patty?
Right.
Yeah, where we got about 100,000 more, so we were really able to put quite a bit of Title I dollars into intervention both before, during, and after school.
So the census data yielded a higher percentage of lower income families, therefore more money through Title I.
Correct.
Yes, it's true.
And then
Right.
Mayor,
Sorry.
I'm going away from that. So, okay. On page 6, I'm just not sure what it means that under actual, the EAP readiness, it says 24%, but then it said exceeded standard. So 24% met, or 24% were at the exceeded? What? I'm not really sure what those three.
Met met is one level and exceeded is another level. So it's those two levels added together.
Okay.
So the 24% is exceeded, not met.
Oh, the top is, yeah, I'm sorry, the top is, I see, understand that met.
Right.
I just wasn't sure that when we get down to the
It
EAPs.
went from 45% in 2015 to last year's CAS scores in ELA were 46% in 2016 spring.
Do you feel like, so we're focusing a lot on ELA, it seems to me, and those numbers are at 51%. Do you feel like we're also focusing on this low 38 on the math? Haven't heard as much about what we're doing for math?
Well, in mathematics, I think we've been in transition for, this is our second year of Bridges, second year of Bridges, and then of course North High School wants the integrated. So I think it takes a little while to catch up. But I think we still have the same kind of focus on mathematics as we do on ELA. I think it's pretty equal.
The difference, though, Jane, and that's a great question. And whether you're in transition or not, well, everybody was in transition for a while into Common Core, right? The textbooks weren't ready. Everybody's running as fast as they can to get some, by that. We have the conversations we had. Give something to the teachers, to give something to the students. Then the books came, but they weren't. They said they were Common Core aligned, but they really weren't, and all that kind of stuff. The fact is, whether it's the old state tests or the new Smarter Balance, every data point has a wide disparity between ELA and math in terms of performance. And it seems to me one of the biggest challenges in the next 5 years, let's say in Smarter Balance, is keeping the ELA performance increasing at a steady rate and closing the gap for math. It doesn't matter what, whether it's a district that used to have an API of 920, or a district that had 720, or a district that had 820, which is sort of more like we were, right? When you get into this new testing, every single data point has these kids struggling in math compared to the test, right? So it's a little hard to know. I don't know, Cheryl, I'm sure maybe you have some thoughts on this, but it's a little hard for me to know. Does that mean they're really learning so much less in math than they are? And I just think it has something to do with the test.
At least in my experience, I do know that literacy has always been the biggest, goal of school, and so I would say that interventions are often primarily focused on reading and writing skills. So I think, when you look at even just for TOPA, the amount of money that we use with our Title I dollars is primarily being spent to support mostly reading and writing skills as interventions in addition to what we're doing in the core classes, general classes. We just don't spend even, a tenth on math intervention, and I would say that's true of my experiences as an educator on multiple sites. So I think it has to do with how we're spending some of those extra dollars to support learning, which maybe needs to be evaluated a little bit.
Yeah, that could be the other thing. Last time to say this may sound a little funny or weird, but this is what I believe to be true. Listen to superintendents talk about performance, and so when you do ELA, let's say we get to that 45 or 50% meeting or exceeding standard, which is sort of the county number. in order to do that, you need to have a skill set that will allow you to take that test and do acceptably well. What's happened in math is you need a lot of that first skill set, right? The ELA skill set, and then you have to do math.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like on the ELA part, you say, okay, I'm all done. I got, I'm pretty good. Then you get to the math thing. Oh, wait, what are all these numbers? You know, so I have to do something else. So I really think it's sort of a double header for these kids. You know, to be able to, because it's so reading. Because right, I'm saying it's so reading intensive now, right?
Right.
Right. The math is so reading intensive.
Right. That's right.
And writing intensive.
And writing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then I remember that even before Common Core, I mean, fourth grade, it was sort of like there's a lot of word problems suddenly in math. And if you can't read fourth grade level, how are you going to do your math?
And that's accelerated now.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. So I think that's a big challenge. Let's just call it for the state. I haven't studied other states much, but it certainly is in California.
I want to point out one new goal in one is 1.8 on page 38, and everyone who knows me knows that anytime at a meeting, if I hear something that I think will apply to the LCAP, I'll jot it down. Well, recently Javier sent me an email and asked if we had dollars to fund an English learner support class in science. What a great concept, you know, because science has a lot of hard vocabulary, difficult vocabulary, and if you're an English learner, it's even magnified. So I thought that's a great question. So Patty and Andy and I got together, and we're talking about our Title I dollars and talking about how much carryover, only 15%. So we had enough to fund a whole section of science at Matilla Junior High. So I'm real pleased that's a new action, and I think it will really help our English learners.
But it's focused just at the junior high level, that it's not.
We could only afford one section.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
For now. There's also another goal it's goal 3, and it's 3.5 on page 50.
6.
And we're kind of going back to that technology access. The elementary leadership team wrote a grant. Do you remember when OEF came out and they said they had large grants? I think they were $25,000 grants. So the elementary leadership team wrote a grant to fund all computer labs at all 5 sites for low-income and English learner families. So the parents and the students can come to the computer lab. I think it's 4 hours a week, and I think the cost was like $22,000 or something like that. So we're real happy. We got the grant, and now the computer labs can be open for those families.
Will you keep track of how many actually come and use the?
Yeah, I think we should, so that we'll have some kind of basis on which to evaluate the program. How did it work? How many families did we serve? Are you willing to fund it again? That kind of thing.
Where is it a series of labs at the different schools?
Each site.
Each site.
All 5 elementary sites.
Will they have a similar number of computers in each one?
It's the computer lab.
I assume all of our labs.
It's the computer lab.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all have the same. The numbers are not
In addition, Summit is our test site for actually having Wi-Fi that will be available outside of the lab as well. So at Summit, because we know that's the location in town that has the most challenging internet connectivity needs, that family can get hooked into the Wi-Fi and go up there and sit on a picnic table and access the internet even outside of those hours.
So Marilyn, that 22,000, is that funding just? I'm assuming that funds a person to be at that.
That's right. It's funding, yes, a staff member to keep the lab open, and each site decided their hours.
And is that staff member just keeping the doors open, or are they actually able to assist with the computer?
that was kind of a question. You want to respond
Well,
to that,
yeah,
Cheryl?
we are definitely hoping for somebody that's gonna be able to help aid them, especially in the different academic online programs that we have to offer kids. We have different programs like Lexia that you guys saw, I believe, with our EL students, you guys do some work with them. So we have lots of programs like that, so we're looking for people that are skilled in those programs. We're also, it's not limited to bilingual staff, but we're looking for that as well as a priority so that if there are language learners coming, that they can be able to know Spanish.
I'm thinking, my daughter just did her 8th grade, had to make a passport, and I was very, very grateful to have an IT guy in my house that was not me, and if I had to be that parent that went to the site,
Yeah.
great, there's a computer here, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it would be somebody who could be hands-on during that time.
Well, and there's just a limited supply in Ojai of public computers. I mean, there's the library and that kind of thing. So we really felt strongly that we needed to give access, especially give priority to our low-income families and our English learner families. But of course, it's open to everyone.
What kind of hours are typical?
It depends.
We were thinking like 5 to 7-ish. That's one of the things that we'll be evaluating as they come. Like, does that time work with families? How many are coming? If we need to shift it later, does it work better to have it right after school, right at pickup, 2:45?
That would seem like a great, great forum for volunteering as well. You can imagine somebody popping in there. I mean, it is, those of us who are familiar with things like Google, when you turn somebody onto that who has no idea about stuff like that, or Khan Academy, it's like mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And David was real instrumental in helping us do the grant too. So a shout out to David. One last highlight for the 17-18 LCAP is 4.2, and it's on page 61. And I'm real excited about this. We're collaborating with and partnering with Food for Thought and hiring a nutrition specialist who's an educator, a nutrition education specialist who can go into the elementary classrooms and talk about nutrition. So I'm real excited about that new position. So that'll be happening in 17-18. So that's part of our health and wellness goal, that goal 4. And once again, at stakeholder meetings, that's always a common theme, the health and wellness, both mental and physical health and wellness. And I think it's real important to our community too.
And that's just at the elementary level, that nutrition teaching spot.
So any other questions?
I have one last question.
Sure.
On page 6, back to the AP classes. I'm wondering what AP pass rate means. Does that mean they passed the class, or they got a 5 on the test, or is that a 3 to 5 on the test?
3 to 5.
3 to 5,
yes,
is what we're counting. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what the AP pass rate is. It's not
Correct.
about the class, it's about the test.
That's right. That's right.
I have one last question. It's a dumb question, but I just don't know the answer. An English learner, is that exclusively based on outside criteria? In other words, evaluation? I assume that there's no self-identification where you say, I think I'm an English learner, and
Actually, it is. The parents fill out a survey when they enroll in school, and there's 4 questions.
It's called the home language survey.
Right, and if any of those indicate that they speak Spanish in the home or any other language, then they're identified as a language learner, and they are doing a CELT test, and that CELT test determines then their classification. So some of them, end up with a category of 1, 2, or 3, which means they're the neediest language learners, they need a lot of support. Some can sort of pass that test the first time they take it, and then they never have to be offered services.
And they're identified initial fluent.
Right.
So they've taken the test, the CELT test, and they're identified as IF, initial fluent.
do they continue in the unduplicated count of our, reduced?
As long as they remain an English learner.
But in other words, having been an English learner who's fluent takes them off that list?
the learners, the English learners.
Yeah, then
Okay.
they go to fluent or reclassified fluent English proficient, RFAP.
Okay. In other words, there's no benefit to the district if someone was once an English learner and no longer is. That to the extent that they're part of the unduplicated count that pushes us into that glorified area of great resources, as long as they're competent, they're off.
Well, kind of. They're not really off. We have to monitor those RFEP students, reclassified English proficient, for 2 years. So we have to monitor using some tool, and we usually use the CASP test. See how they're doing. At
Plus,
the high
isn't
school,
it important that we actually show that our students are progressing? I think that's the benefit, is that we show our programs are being effective.
Well, yeah, I also just thought it might be an area where we could do better also along the lines we've always been talking about, finding more people willing to step forward into the free and reduced area. But I wonder if there's some opportunity for people who are for some reason feeling it's stigmatizing to be. Yeah, my kids are English learners technically because they spoke Turkish when they grew up, so they were assessed and found,
initial fluent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty fluent.
Yeah.
So is that? So that's interesting. Do you find there that, use the word stigmatized, that there is a significant percentage of families, parents who would not identify themselves as speaking other than
No,
English?
I think that they typically do identify themselves.
Right. Sometimes people, parents over-identify. So, we lived in France for 4 years, and so my children are bilingual, and so they'll mark that, and then all of a sudden they're designated an English learner, and they don't really want that.
So you think it's
that
pretty good
happens.
pretty good number. The
Very
number.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No fertile ground there.
Word it again.
That old 45% rate just can't get beyond.
Is this new LCAP, is it on the website?
The draft.
The draft, it won't be on there until it's.
We could put the draft
It can be on there this evening.
Mm-hmm. And then for the public, this is the public hearing, and then it'll be approved
I never forgot about this.
June
27th.
27th.
So we do need to make this our public hearing, so I'm gonna open,
Yes.
or I need a motion to open the
Yes.
public hearing about the LCAP.
I will move to open the public hearing on the
I'll second.
We rarely get to do that.
I know. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. So that means anyone's welcome to come forward and make a public comment on what we've been discussing. Is there anyone that wishes to do so?
They haven't spoken back.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One, who answered is now starting school just now. And two, you said there are student stakeholders. Are they mostly just high school students? And then how do you gather that information?
Usually I go to Bronwyn, Bronwyn has her fingers with a lot of kids, Avid, now she's a counselor, and leadership. So I usually prepare a survey and send it to her leadership kids. And that's the way most districts do it who have a high school, who are unified.
Any other public comments? We'll close the public hearing. A motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Thank you, Marilyn. You're welcome.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Good job. Very good. Great work.
My pleasure.
Okay, I said earlier I would make a mistake as I'm going through and putting things in. When we were recognizing those who are retiring, I did have some people ask me if we will be recognizing Hank this evening. And I forgot to mention that we will be doing that in August, since he is working through till mid-August. And we have a board meeting on August 15th, and we'll be
Marilyn, I have a question.
showering you with
Showering? Okay, I'll bring my cap.
You'll be principal next year.
That's a good question, Shelley. Yes, I will.
You will be.
My schedule next year
Shelley asked me to hear about doing the LCAP. And remember, it's
Well,
not
of
I,
course.
it's me. I just want to sort of orchestrate the LCAP. But yes, I will be doing the LCAP and lots of
Other
federal
sundry.
things, and then working real closely with Cheryl in addition to going up. It's only 12 minutes.
You should have been at the 7-Eleven committee. Everyone claiming it was 25.
Yeah, right. It's true.
Okay, now we will move on to 7.1. Personnel, Resolution 161722, required for request of exemption for post-retirement separation.
So I've given you some information on this. We just identified the person by employee number as opposed to name, but you're aware of the special circumstances of this individual. This will allow this person to start working in a substitute role immediately as opposed to having to wait 180 days, right? 180 days. And we think this has great merit. So we're presenting it to you as a formal request, which then will go to the state, and Andy guarantees me that they're always approved.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. 7.3.1, Nordhoff 3-year science graduation requirement. We had discussion about this, I think, at our last meeting.
I just want to add one thing, actually as a response to Jane, a couple of questions you asked. Notice the last sentence. I think, Dave, it'd be fair to say that one thing that has caused us to grow, if that's the right term, between May 2nd and now, is the understanding that one size doesn't always fit all, right? And that you may have, say, 175 in the graduating class of 2021. You may have 167 or so who have 3 years of science because 8 of them don't quite fit the mold, right? And it wasn't the right decision in the counseling office to move that student into a requirement of science because there were just some circumstances that didn't allow that to be the right decision, right? Okay. Or transfers, obviously not with us for 4 years. I say other unexpected situations. Okay?
Mhm.
So there, I think the term I would use here is flexibility, but with a belief that students will grow from those 3 years, particularly given the fact that you're going to be identifying a broader set of courses, right? The CTE, et cetera, that will allow that requirement to be fulfilled. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's my question in regards to this is what kind of time frame are we looking at for those CTE welding and auto tech?
Next year.
Next year?
Yeah, we're going to get started on trying to change the curriculum within the welding, the auto to include some scientific units in there to be able to qualify as a science course.
So starting in the fall, that's great. That's the answer
That's
I
the
wanted
goal.
to hear. Cool, thanks.
Who do you have to apply to get that approved? I mean, is there some, like it was at WASP, we approved some things, right? So is there someone that is going to approve that, yes, this course is now a math, or it's just internal?
It's just internal as far as I understand. I asked that same question of people outside. As far as I understand, it's just an internal decision on my part. Taking into consideration having that same flexibility. So
It really would be internal because we're the ones that are determining the 3-year requirement.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a graduation requirement. And we're making it 3 years, therefore we get to make the definition.
correct. And typically, any students who might be taking a CTE course, welding or auto for science credit, they may not be on an AG path. So I don't think that we need to apply, for AG approval for those particular courses.
That's what I was thinking.
Is that a
about the age.
possibility that it would eventually be A to G?
I think that was
It's
your goal.
not a lab class, and you need 2 lab classes,
I would
correct?
say
Not going to
long shot.
Okay.
Well, along those lines, though, would there be a way to describe the course so that a college looking at somebody's transcript would say, "Oh, this is interesting. This is not just your dad's auto shop. You know, this has got some, you know, auto shop with science. I don't know. You know, I just wonder how that might be differentiated to
Well, I think,
indicate that it's
you know,
got
your
a more.
course catalog would probably be the best source, but as far as identifying with that kind of detail on a transcript would not be possible, but it could be something that, you know, like I said, course catalog, maybe mention the student's application essay, letter of recommendation to the teacher. So I think there's ways of getting that detail that satisfy that.
So I have a question. When we talked about it in early May, I think the figure was something like 20 students in this year's seniors did not take a third year science. So my question is then why? Why the push? If it's not really affecting the graduates anyway, why would we need to add this third year? What are we trying to?
Well, we feel like, you know, it applies to the overwhelming majority of our students. You know, we obviously are trying to maintain high academic expectations as well, and it's been a tradition for us to have this. I mean, it's only recently, because of declining enrollment, that we had to scale back, you know, our academic rigor, and so we'd like to return to that particular level. But the nice thing here is having that flexibility that we've created for a particular student. We don't. I understand your concern, and I have that same concern, is that we don't want to set a student up for failure if they couldn't get high school graduation because we have, you know, this extra year of science requirement. So that would be, you know, one of my goals and one of my challenges to make sure that that doesn't happen. And we have, you know, this set in place so that, you know, possibility that, you know, we might be able to entice some students who might otherwise, you know, not consider a third year of science, you know, when we look at 7.3.2. Physics and next generation sciences. I think there's some potential there that we can maybe, and with the idea of incorporating some STEM concepts, you know, the makerspace, possibly in the future, who knows if we're looking at an extra science class that could be focused more on STEM. I think it sets us up for the future. So I think we're just taking the long view.
Jane, a couple of things here. One, you've read a couple of times where they say returning to the 3-year requirement. I mean, I was the one, unfortunately, that had to sit down with Dan Music and many faculty members, particularly in science, where there was a requirement beyond the state requirements. And it was back in 9, 10, 11, 12, and just say, you know, we're just not able now to be able to fund the number of classes that we did before. Therefore, some of the requirements need to be reduced. This was one. The number of courses that seniors had to take, right, was another one. For a while, it was 6, which I thought was pretty onerous. But even when I came, it was more like 5-ish. And then there were some situations where we said, you know, if you're on a path to graduate, you can take 4. Right? And the only way to really reduce staffing in the high school is to reduce the number of registrations, and therefore the number of classes. So it is returning, that's one point I want to make. It's returning to what was back in sort of the pre-2008 implosion of financial systems around the country. The second thing is, to answer, I would say that schools often make a statement, high schools, make a statement about the value they place on academic rigor by the requirements that they identify in their handbook, right? So, you know, someone moving into the community may say, well, you know, back where we live, we only had 2 years of this and 2 years of this because it was a state requirement. You come here, you say, we have higher standards for graduation, albeit flexible, but higher standards for graduation than the requirement that's out there in Sacramento or in other places. I see your head going up and down.
Head shaking yes.
Yeah.
Setting high expectations, I think, are crucial, right? Because when you set the bar high, then kids meet that bar. So,
as long as we're not causing them to, you know, not be able to get their chin over the bar, you know. So, you know, Dave and you and Dave's successor and assistant principal, I think it's a right thing to do at a time when, and Kevin, you and I have had this conversation, when as we get smaller, people will continue to make those judgments about this public high school or that independent school or that one or that one or that one. And I think Nordoff needs to be out there pushing the envelope academically to be able to say we have the highest academic standards we could possibly endorse. I think that's where you're going, right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I fully agree with that, and I think your rationale, I think both of your rationale is basically the same, which is it may not have a huge impact on who's actually taking science, but it makes a statement, and I think more and more, it's remarkable how often you hear people judge a school based on some anecdote or some superficial perception, and so, yeah, I think having a 3-year science requirement, particularly in light of the fact that it's pretty consistent with the actual experience of the students already, I think is a no-brainer. And I love that it's not us pushing you guys, that you guys come to us and say, let us do this.
My feeling was that by not creating a whole nother science class, but really beefing up these classes that already exist, that to me is adding benefit to what's already there. That those kids who are in there are getting more enrichment than they were just from the welding class and the auto class. And I have this little teeny tiny sliver of hope that, and it may be completely unfounded, but that out of those 20 kids, there may be some girls that will go into this and take these classes that they wouldn't have otherwise, but because it fills a science requirement. Because my impression is no girls at this point are enrolled in these classes, or at least they weren't when I saw them. Is that true or not true?
That is not true, actually.
I am so glad
Auto
to hear
and, more so in the auto classes, and we're slowly gaining some traction in the welding.
Okay.
We are having more females each year. It seems we have a couple more that are involved. Now, some of them may be because we have a great auto and welding teacher, and Carly also is a girls wrestling coach, I think. But if that's what it takes to get started, then
and if that's what it takes, if we add it as a science requirement, they may choose environmental science, but here's another option that I think would be fabulous.
Yeah, I have to, I don't want to repeat what everybody said, but I really do appreciate the idea of what I consider to be deepening the CTE classes and broadening them from basic craft, which is what they started as so long ago, to a real world recognition that these are skills that can make you into a small business person. These are not dead end skills, and you need the science behind it. So I think this is a really smart move.
So do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve this request.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, me. Aye. So 3 approve, 1. I'm sorry?
I'm not.
You declined?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 7.3.2, Nordhoff Physics First Science Program, beginning in 17-18. Dave, are you going to be addressing this, or?
Let me just answer questions, from a month ago.
Yeah, if you have other questions, yeah.
I love this idea. I think it's great. I love it because I think it really is one of the more exciting sciences, and to start kids their freshman year loving science, maybe they haven't loved it for a couple of years, and to get them back on track to feeling like science is exciting, it's a great.
And what I've noticed is, in my position of enrolling students and seeing transcripts in other schools, that it was more common than I assumed that other schools had freshman physics. So, the ideas started to germinate, and talking with Natalie and Greg Vance about the idea. I really feel it's the right move, particularly because the potential, the hands-on potential of physics, to lock in the freshmen and excite them about physics and about science. I think that is a great way of starting their science experience in high school. And with the potential of incorporating STEM activities and STEM units, the discussions that we've had in the creation of the new library to make a maker space for that particular purpose. I think what it does is, knowing that they're doing activities at the elementary level, it'll just create this K-12 continuum that I think will give people more excited physics and science. We're really excited. I think this is the right.
And I love that the science teachers are excited about it and what that means.
I still remember from my high school freshman physics class the Bernoulli's principle, which everybody uses when you're on a plane or when the shower curtain pulls towards you because of the water and the air. I mean, what could be better?
Really?
Saratoga High School.
I did that.
Okay, so a motion to approve the physics first science program beginning in 17-18.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
Just one thing, Jane, before we move, maybe Cheryl or Meryl, Cheryl in particular, just wanted to give you a little postscript on the person you met on May 2nd was Natalie. Remember, initially, back to Greg again, he was able to sort of blowtorch her out of the UCSB doctoral program. So that was what she was going to do. Then she said, I'll come back, I'll teach 60%, 80%. So she was going to teach 80% and is teaching 80% at Nordoff, obviously, with his physics focus. And she was going to start the doctoral program. Well, as of recently, right? She's now 100% in the district. And why don't you talk a little bit about the 20% where she's not at Nordoff, because now we have, 20% at Matilah. They had that one class that was on the books. And now Natalie is doing elementary.
Natalie and I had a very exciting meeting. She has so much passion and energy and has such a love for teaching science at the elementary level that we talked about designing a situation next year where she would come and in all the 5th and 6th grade classes in each of the 5 elementary schools come and teach side by side with the teacher. It's a training opportunity for the teacher to see really great high quality NGSS in action. Most likely being able to teach through 2 modules of about 6 lessons in each module. So delivering about 12 lessons side by side with the teacher in every 5th and 6th grade classroom next year. So, and I just talked to Greg Lapine earlier, who's on board to also help out with that. So that is going to be really amazing. We're trying to help get NGS science really bolstered up in our elementary schools.
I'm so thrilled to hear that, because that's, I think, the elementary and science.
We really need the
We
support.
need help there.
Yeah. And so, and with Natalie and Greg, I mean, behind the ideas of this.
I just, was really upset with Greg that he's leaving before my youngest daughter will happen. So she'll be in 6th grade next year. I am.
Yep.
Pre-NGSS in elementary schools was clearly the most challenging academic arena for elementary teachers. Yes, some science, and going to NGSS could be just like mind-boggling. So having these two people, create that kind of excitement, but also experience and just real academic traction. Right? I love that. I think it's fabulous. And that was, where is that? Just remind me where that funding is coming from.
Educator effectiveness.
Educator effectiveness. So it's that whole big block of $400,000, $500,000. Whatever was it?
That one's actually, it's just under 200,000. About
The original
180.
total was one.
Yeah, so it's about 65,000 a year that we were supposed to spend over 3 years.
For us, it was a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's coming from that.
Right. So a block grant we received, very restricted uses, couldn't be going toward Natalie teaching a full section of science. It's the reason we're able to fund her with this funding source is because of, as Cheryl described, really her role in working alongside and providing the support to the actual 5th and 6th grade teachers. So it really is an ideal use of educator effectiveness, one-time dollars to help put in the structure for those teachers to carry it forward into the years following.
And Natalie's background is elementary. Right?
Yes.
She said she was in elementary. Yeah, so she's not, just sort of dabbling, below the 7th grade.
She really has passion for teaching science in the elementary.
Yeah, she does. That's pretty cool.
And is that just 1 year at this point?
1 year of that funding.
Yeah.
We'll
So I
evaluate.
should hold Bridget back so she can have. Okay.
We'll evaluate next year the success of the program and what the needs
I
are.
would bet it stays. I would bet it stays.
Okay, I'm gonna move on then, since we've already taken a vote. We do have 7 textbook recommendations, several which are just replacing books that we have already approved. They're just getting used, a couple maybe just a new edition. I don't know if I don't have any questions. I'm suggesting that we just vote on them all together unless someone has an issue that they'd like to discuss.
Want to talk about motifs?
I would like to remove 7.3.3A from the list. We unfortunately and unexpectedly just discovered that textbook is no longer in print. Yeah, so we worked the last 8 months to go ahead and find that book, and it's no longer in use. However, we have found another one that we are exploring, but we're not ready to present it tonight. So
3 weeks from now? 3 weeks from now, you think that I've heard it?
I believe so.
Good. You want to say anything about motifs? You're sitting here for 2.5 hours on it.
I just wanted to comment because of this is an awesome book. I looked at many, and we can buy probably a classroom set of 30, which is going to serve 2.5 French levels, French 1, French 2, and then part of French 3. So if we keep this in the classroom, then we can probably hold class down a bit. Although, since I was here last year, we weren't sure how the program was going to go. I was here to watch the program last year.
Yeah.
And for next year, we've actually had 37 students sign up. So that's actually a little too big, but maybe there'll be some conflicts and such. If not, we may have to order some.
How many did you have this year, Lisa?
Well, let's see. I guess I started with 21.
That's a pretty good increase. Congratulations. That's great.
Yes, that's true.
Really good. Really good. With a high school with 40 less kids. 40 less students in high school, 50% more registrations. That's terrific.
So Lisa, next year it will be French 1 and French 2, correct? We still are not at the point of offering French 3. Is that?
We don't have a cohort yet that's there.
Right.
So today, this year is the first year of French 1. We'll be ready to go into French 2, and we'll see when French 3 comes, if we can afford to run a section or not. It will be rather small.
Okay. My question is if that covers part of French 3. I guess this is a question for a couple of years down the road. But what does French 3 look like? Are we looking at having to get another textbook? Is it supplementary and we use just that, or?
Probably. We're not there yet, so I wouldn't want to hazard
a guess.
Especially when it gets
Okay.
Anything else about the motifs that we should know?
Well, it's very fresh and up to date. It has lots of cultural information and lots of images, which is some things that I never enjoyed when I was in French class. All my textbooks were black and white, and maybe had 3 photos or something. It's very well organized. It has really good grammatical explanations, but there's not overwhelming. It's got fun conversations, and it's got a lot of good online components for the teacher and also for the students. So I think it's really going to be a cancer program, and I think we should invest in it.
What were you using this year?
This year I was using Dumont, which is now 20 years old, and we've used it forever. We have lots of copies, but it's not the most exciting textbook for students. So we didn't really have the funding last year to start with a new textbook, especially since the program was new and you kind of had to see, was it going to take or not. So I think for next year it would be nice to start with something new.
And with 30 textbook sets, they stay in the classroom.
They would stay in the classroom. I'd probably put fabric covers on them, to save the covers and such. So we could have a really long time.
So how do kids do homework out of them?
For me, I don't always have them do homework out of the book. I send them home sheets or something. So that's what I would do is I would probably send them home sheets, some copies from this or whatever, or it would be something else, with the writing stuff. So they wouldn't have to have the textbook with them. They would already have their notes, can be in their notebook, to draw from. So it'd be okay without having one of these at home as well.
Do we have a couple other teachers here to talk about other textbooks?
Becky, you have, want to talk about the financial literacy?
Yes. So, Scott Carlos had a consumer math class for a long time, and the book is old enough that you could buy a card for under $10,000. And it really didn't do anything to relate the information to your personal life. It was just kind of like, here's a chart about expenses in buying a car, and here's some word products for buying a car. But it really is not interesting, very outdated, and the book that I had to preview, I looked at a few different publishers, and the content is effectively the same, but I like the delivery of this one. It was sort of a quick read. They get the meat of it very quickly, which is important for a lot of our students, but it's also relevant to their daily lives, and it's current, it's accurate, and then the two workbooks that go with it. It looks redundant, but it's not. If you look at the types of problems in the workbooks, one just says student workbook, the other one is a math workbook. So the types of problems that are in the two workbooks really are very different. I wouldn't have the students write in the workbooks. I would have them answer on separate papers, so the workbooks would not actually be consumed. They're just not useful as for them. So I think it would be more useful and more interesting to our students. And it gives us more options for math. And life skills is something that our students have been asking for.
I did think it was great. I had a chance to look at it, and my son had just done a senior research project on athletes, professional athletes who go bankrupt. And one of the things he said was no one ever gave them a class on how to manage their money. And it's just amazing.
I can present myself.
I felt it was very useful, and it's colorful and appealing for your students with this. And with the veterinary assisting, I had hoped to get a veterinary assisting class in our adult ed program that would then provide some management. That didn't go, but we can still have a veterinary assisting class at Chaparral High School. I worked for 4 years as a veterinary assistant, veterinary office manager, so even if the county will provide us a teacher, I can teach that. And I'll coordinate with veterinarians in the valley for some work-based learning. Ideally, I hope that some of the veterinarians will agree to have some students do some job shadowing or internship, whether it's paid or unpaid, at the very least, come and speak to the students. I felt it was, for a lot of our students, a more accessible way to, more accessible introduction to healthcare fields. If you're going to go into human-based medicine, you have a lot of academic work you have to do before you get very much hands-on. But if you're going into veterinary medicine, depending on the practice, you could just walk in off the street and start doing the hands-on on day one. So I felt it was easier for them to get introduced, and a lot of them like working with animals. And so there would be opportunities for employment and then opportunities for that to grow.
That's great.
We also have a math teacher here and our new math department chair, Sean Jackson. So he's going to be teaching our Math 4, which will be the final stage of the integrated math program. So if you have any questions about Math 4 book.
How would you say?
Is this the advanced placement calc or?
No, this is on the next
Oh, there it is,
page.
interactive math program. Yep.
How would you say 1, 2, and 3 are working, particularly 3?
So I've been training all of them. I've taught out of 2, 3, and 4. This year we did math analysis using the core curriculum.
Three is pretty good at doing a lot of the teaching about different side waves and why they work the way they do and stuff. And I think one of the most like standout things about the core curriculum is that it has some coding. It's a whole unit on how to do calculator coding, which is all TIA 3s and 4s, which is kind of unique because a lot of times if you get to the next level in college and stuff, you have to go into coding classes for your programs. And you don't really get to learn about those loops and stuff before you get there. And so I think it gives our crew kind of a leg up on next level because just the thought process of what does a loop do and a loop within a loop and all that stuff is really just being able to logic through that is really an impressive step. And that went really well this year, I think.
Do we have the first three in this series?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer as well, right?
That's what we were hoping.
We're good at those no-brainers. Huh? Okay.
Although, having you here locked it in.
There you go, yeah.
And health, the change in the health, is that just?
It's an updated version, so there's some issues now that weren't perhaps as mainstream as commonplace that they have been in the past. And they help what we had. Traveling French book, probably not the literacy book at Chapel High School, but again, we're talking over 10 years old, so a lot has happened in health since.
Who knew it could be so difficult, right?
Whoever said that?
Okay.
Just got that.
So 7.3.3 B, C, D, E, and then 3.4 A, B. Motions to approve action items for purchase.
Do we hear anything about the calculus book?
Well, Sean is as close as we get to a calculus expert there. Unfortunately,
Is that Renee? Renee?
is not able to make it tonight, but
Renee doing that? Is it?
it was Renee.
Renee, yeah.
Teaches that particular class. And I think the one thing that we want to stress is the readability of this particular edition, this version, in light of some of the earlier conversations we had here about math scores and the increased requirement for literacy. We felt this particular textbook would hit that mark. And there were some other mathematical concepts that she shared with me, derivatives and things of that nature that I just nodded my head, sure.
Our math core curriculum is a lot different than what the analysis kind of used to be. A lot of it, it's really conceptual based, so I think this lines up a little better with that.
That was going to be my next question.
Because the approach to it is different than a typical, traditional math analysis class. Describes it as not as much drill and kill, but what is the concept of a derivative is in math core, and this hopefully transitions better to it.
How old is our current book? Do we know? Our current count book?
I'm probably going 8 or 9 years. So it's.
Hey, what number? I know this is a bit hypothetical because we haven't done 4 yet, but as you look across the new 1 to 4 program, what would you guess would be the move of students, percentage of students in 4 who go on to AP?
25 based on the high schools.
Well, I think.
Well, yeah, okay. It might be more than 25.
I think it is 25 now, but what I'm getting a sense is that there's more push to accelerate. I feel that more students are coming into Nordoff at level 2,
Right.
And some now at level 3.
But the 2s are more typical.
2s are, yeah, absolutely.
Right, so now you're
3 is
2,
rare.
so you're 4 as a junior.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand what's the corpus projected of 4s and juniors who then go on and take AP as seniors. What's that?
I believe the class this year was low 20s. I would say, I think that's maybe getting up into the 30 range, maybe 35, but I probably won't project it.
Which class?
The AP calculus.
Okay, from
Math 4.
From how big a group in Math 4? In other words, I'm trying to understand what's our AP matriculation group? You know, when students look across 4 years and they come into 2, I realize some come into 3, but it's a small group. So I'm just thinking now, okay, I'm a freshman, you're planning it out. What's the likelihood of an AP cohort that goes through the 2, 3, 4 environment?
Well, Sean, this year's got 52.
There you go.
If we had 25 more.
That's what I was trying to get at. Okay, all right, okay, yeah, okay. Thanks.
Those books are expensive.
I know, hey, it's a shock when I remember what they were.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve all the textbooks that are recommended. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
Thanks for hanging in there, everybody.
Sorry,
No,
thank
no,
you.
that's all right. You can't do everything first.
Not too bad, it's only 8.
No, it's only.
Okay, we did 7.3.5, so now 7.3.6.
Okay, this is like iteration 3 or 4, right? We're now no special ed, only medical condition, waivers, not really many units. A couple of semesters and a year. So I recommend that you approve.
Any questions? A motion to approve? All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. Andy, 7.4.1, proposed budget.
So,
Public hearing. Wait, do we do that after he
It doesn't matter.
speaks?
Either way.
Okay.
Right. So at 8:20, I'll take a cue from Hank and have my introductory comments inversely related to the time of the evening. So I'll truncate the initial comments because I know that you guys always have terrific questions, so that way we can really focus time on the budget to your questions. I presented you with materials that you received middle of last week. I'm going to just jump past the written material and go directly to page 7 of 13, which is the look at revenues for this upcoming fiscal year. The couple areas I'm going to point out.
I'm sorry, and what page?
This is page 7 of 13. Is it?
Got it.
Well, I'm actually in the budget book itself. Let me see if I. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's in our binders.
The other ones I was looking at, they're not numbered.
Right.
Sorry.
So if you are not looking at the binder one, but looking at what was in the green folder, then it would be this page right here. Okay. Okay. You're in the binder. It's page 7 of 13. A couple areas just to point out. First one is if you look at that top set of numbers, that's the LCFF revenue, obviously the largest portion of revenues we receive. If you look at that middle set of 3 numbers, that's what we're focusing our time on tonight. That's our proposed adopted budget for this coming year. You'll see that we actually are projecting a reduction in LCFF revenue of nearly $400,000. The reason for that is that as a declining enrollment district, we're funded off of the greater of prior year ADA or current year ADA. Next year, we're projecting a decline in enrollment again, so we'll be funded off of this year's ADA. And if you remember, this year we've actually had a loss of about 100 students. And so we didn't feel the full pain of that loss financially in this year. Instead, we feel it next year. And so even though we're getting more money per student, our revenue overall is decreasing because of the increase in per pupil funding does not make up for the loss of enrollment. The only other thing I'll point out on this page is if you go about halfway down the data set, the first item identified under other state resources is the mandated cost. It's the object code 8550. You'll see that in the current year budget that we had $612,000 in this funding source. Next year, we're projecting 83. So if you recall from my notes I provided you last week, this is really where the governor did that thing that, frankly, many districts are claiming is illegal. And if it actually goes through later this month, that there's questions as to whether or not districts will sue. But to state briefly, the governor, this is his source for one-time funding for districts, had told us that we were going to be getting about $47 per student in January. In May, he said, I'm actually going to increase it more than threefold. So we all said, woohoo. And then kind of hid in his in the literature associated with the budget that he wouldn't actually be releasing those funds until May of 19. And that's only if everything comes to fruition that he's currently projecting in the budget. If there's any reason of why the budget or the actual revenues over the next 2 years, again, May of 19, so 24 months from, or nearly 24 months from now, if anything changes in revenue projections that would not have that come true, then he just said that he'll pull it back. So at this time, we actually are not budgeting those dollars. That's the guidance that both our county office has told us, as well as the primary business consulting group, School Services, has said, is that we should not be budgeting that revenue for 17-18 or even in the multi-year projection 18-19. However, of course, if we do end up receiving that money, that will help us significantly bridge that deficit that we're projecting in the out year, the 18-19 school year. So that was all I was going to point out on the revenues.
And where were you pointing out the loss of, give or take, what did you say, 400,000?
The initial comment about LCFF is actually that top grouping. So remember, LCFF is a little bit of a shell game as to exactly where it comes
you're
from.
Saying the whole thing.
Exactly.
I was looking for a line item.
Sorry. So if you see the 388,000 is what's listed.
Yep.
It's because LCFF ultimately comes from property tax, and then the state makes up the difference of what your property taxes are and in what your allocation would otherwise be.
Slightly off topic.
Yes.
The 100 students that we've lost this year, do we have, do we find out why? Do we have any way of asking those families why they're leaving the district? Is it all because they moved?
Well, the great majority of the students are just having smaller cohorts incoming and larger cohorts graduating from 12th grade.
Right.
So the majority is we lost students as a result of our kindergarten classes continue to follow that model of being roughly 160 students, and our 12th grade, historically, the past few years, was closer to 200. And so
when
this
you
past...
said lost, I had heard.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Okay.
And that, I probably should...
But we did lose.
So we have, though, that's also true. So we always lose around 10% of the 8th grade matriculating to 9th. Majority of those go to Villanova. We know we've talked about that quite a bit in the past. Some are going now down to El Camino, but we didn't see anything unusual, and there was no other significant loss below Nordhoff. So K through 8. Again, the biggest change was just the small incoming kindergarten class. At Nordhoff, we have seen a larger than typical change in enrollment from the 9th grade to the 10th grade this year. Some of those were during the summer, and some actually were mid-year. Again, a slightly higher than average in-year change in attendance, and we do actually keep those records. Greg does have a list of every student who leaves from Nordhoff, and I've gone through that list, and some of them are the family moves out of town. Some is that they are either going to Valley Oak, El Camino, or Vista Real, and they're really looking for that independent study option. Very rare is the occurrence that they're leaving for another comprehensive high school elsewhere. That just isn't what we're seeing. But the counseling department, Dave and Greg, are reviewing that list and trying to see if there are any trends. But this time, because we're just such a small group and you have 10 students leave, that's really significant, but may not necessarily mean a trend.
I would be curious to know why they're looking for the independent study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why students are looking to do independent study?
What is it about that is the draw? I'd be curious. Okay.
So on the expenditure side, again, in my notes, I identify that we are looking at actually a number of staffing reductions, both at administrative level as well as on primarily the certificate side, not as many on the CSEA or classified side. But we were able to accomplish this through attrition exclusively. And despite the reduced staffing ratios or the staffing level, we actually are having the lowest class sizes that we've seen since the Great Recession. And frankly, I'm not sure that we were really at these numbers for a couple of years preceding even the 08 period. So you'll see that if you look at the actual first three groupings of expenditures, remember the salaries for teachers and certificate staff are in that first grouping of what we call the 1000s. Classified staff are in the 2000s, and then the benefits for both or for all employees are in the 3000s. You'll see that the 1,000 and 2,000 combined, our actual staffing wages, our salaries, are projected to go down considerably, nearly $200,000, despite that remember this is still the settlement that we entered into this year that was 4% but was effective in January has an impact for next year. So teachers are effectively receiving another 1.6% increase for next year relative to their total compensation this year. So the fact that we're actually seeing a reduction in wages despite having the continuation impact of the salary settlement for this year is showing that we really are actually making some significant changes at staffing level.
I think it might be worth just, to the extent anyone is watching, just to be clear about what you're saying, because it sounds sort of like there's another 1.6 next year. I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
You're talking about the whole year versus a half year, right?
Right. So for those watching at home or any in the audience who do not recall, we had salary settlements for both our certificate and classified bargaining units that became effective on January 1st. They were 4% enhancements, but because they were effective partway through the year, not all of their compensation ended up seeing a full 4% increase. They did see an actual increase of 4% on their paychecks beginning after the salary enhancement was effective. But let's just say that an employee who is making $50,000, 4%, you would have assumed that their salary for the year would have gone up to $52,000. Instead, because only a certain number of their paychecks were impacted, it only went up to $51,000. And this coming year is when it will be a full $52,000. Does that make sense?
For the whole year's salary.
Whole year salary ends up being
affected by the increase.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. Okay.
Andy, what on this classified salaries going down significantly? Aren't those positions we tend to hire at the beginning of the year? So are we saying we definitely won't be hiring those? Those hourly instructional aides?
Great question. So that would be actually in the 2100 category, and you see that we aren't looking at too significant of a change in the instructional assistant. So we haven't actually factored in staffing reductions at the aide level. The real change in classified is really a result of the changes at the leadership structure. So my salary has been pulled out of this classified grouping. I was previously in the 2300, and I'm now being moved up to where the superintendent compensation is, which is 1300. So you can see, if you see that direct change, you'll see that the 1300 is going up by nearly $250,000. Part of that is because of the addition of Cheryl's position, the assistant superintendent position that was previously classified. It's also in part because this is a group who has the actual staffing or the salary enhancement also impacted them. And so again, we know that there's a 2% change there. And then there's also the impact of the vacation payouts of those, of Hank retiring. It's gonna be more vague, but
I'm okay with it.
The employee, which we will call HB.
Right. The single administrative employee who's retiring.
Right. So again, remember that at the 1300 level, or in the certificate administration, we are seeing actual net savings. That's the savings of reducing the elementary admin time. But again, there's an actual, here it may look like the increase, but that's really because of the changes on the classified side. So remember, it's not just a change for myself, but we also were reducing the plant supervisors. We had 2. We eliminated both those positions, replaced it with only a single M&O coordinator. And all classified management did not participate in the salary enhancement this year as well. So some of those things are the way that we were able to result in a net savings at the administrative level. Only other thing I'll point out when it comes to the personnel-related expenditures, that the retiree benefits is listed in that 3000 object code grouping. It's 3,700. So second one from the bottom of that group of expenses, you'll see retiree benefits identified. You'll see that we're actually looking at a $55,000 reduction in retiree benefits, despite having an increase in our premiums of nearly 8%. Pat, you remind me, how many people is the 55,000? 6 or 7 retirees?
Throughout the year next year, it's going to be a total of 11, but it'll be staggered throughout the year.
So what we're seeing is, anecdotally, we knew this, but certainly it's starting to hit our budget that we have fewer and fewer staff who are able to retire, at a younger age and be able to more fully participate in this program. And so we're having more people aging out of this program than who are entering into it. And so it was actually only last year that we had this expenditure at nearly $750,000. It was actually, I think maybe even slightly over, if I recall correctly, in 14-15, it was about 780. So we're seeing significant reductions in this expense, and that's just a direct result of fewer retirements, and those who do retire are not retiring in that mid-50 age range, but rather in the 60s, and so just are not eligible for it for as long.
So another mixed blessing type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Andy, where is that? I see the same number all the way across. Yeah, I've got it.
Oh.
55,000 last one. You know,
Yeah.
3,700. 3,700. Yeah, page 8 of 13. Yeah, they're on page. Go back to page 8.
Well, then I want to know why my 3,700 doesn't jive with yours.
I think you might be looking at multi-year projection.
Yeah, I think you're.
Maybe.
8 of 13.
8 of 13. A little more. Two more.
Okay, sorry. I was even.
Here are the numbers.
I was having trouble finding 8 of 13.
It's at the top. Just for
All right. Okay.
3,700. Right there. Okay.
I don't want to coin a bad term, but in improv, that's called ass puppeting somebody through something.
I feel like I just was teaching.
So I'll conclude my topic on expenditures, then certainly welcome any conversation, to just drawing your attention to the bottom of the page. Bottom right corner, you'll see that overall our expenditures are being reduced in this upcoming year by approximately $100,000, $95,000 reduction in expenditures. That's bottom right of the page, second line from the bottom.
Better than the alternative.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Good. Yeah, great. And basically, well, the staffing, I had to step out from it. So did you do all the FTE staffing changes to show you about
We
that?
didn't go into
Just,
great detail on that,
okay,
but
just,
it's
like
documented in
two
the memo.
sentences, you're looking at 4 to 5 less certificated people, right? When you went through all that.
Right.
4 to 5
Special
less
agent,
people, which
exactly.
obviously, even with the salary
Right.
schedule
Precisely.
increase, will create
Exactly.
a $100,000 job.
Right.
Interestingly, I was on the wrong page, but I was looking at the same object code, and you have that flat, that what is currently a savings is not expected to continue. At least, is that just because you just don't have visibility into those future years?
Exactly. So that was looking at multi-year. And so when we're looking into the following 2 years, we don't go through the analysis of trying to estimate who may be retiring a year or two from now and adding them and then taking off those who age out. And so what we really end up assuming, our multi-year projection is built on a number of assumptions, and one of them is that what the current trend we see will just continue. And so as people age out, we will have those coming in. So certainly if the trend continues that more are aging out than are entering into the program, then that could be an additional savings in the following years.
Do you have, all right, this is kind of an out there question, but when I look at these multi-year projections, I'm wondering, should we be trying to do something in 17-18 that reduces our budget a little bit?
Are you saying do things in preparation for 18-19, or do more than what we've done so far as reductions in expenditures for trying to limit that impact in the following year? From a staffing perspective, special education, instructional assistants, you're right, that is an area where we really have greater understanding, once we actually have the students return in August. Classified staff, we do have the ability to have layoffs if necessary at any time in the year. There's just a requirement as far as days of notice, unlike on the certificate side. So we do have some flexibility in staffing, but really at this point on the staffing level, our staff is pretty well set for this coming year. Now, each time there is a retirement or resignation, we always have that flexibility to look at how best to continue staffing.
So
Of course, I say this after voting yes on all
Well,
the
yeah,
textbooks.
exactly. Right. No, but-
I'm just saying it's a thought.
Well,
that-
post May 15th, you are locked in. You know, to the people who are already here. The only flexibility you have are people you haven't hired yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which are probably not very many. I mean, how many positions would you say are yet? I'm not recommending you total fill them, but how many positions would you say FTEs are yet to be filled, certificated
Kim Hoy and Dave Munson.
in the whole district?
Can you
I
think of
think
any
right,
other?
because junior high. I guess.
Yeah, no, we're staffed at this
That's about
point
it.
because we didn't hire anyone. We didn't lay people off, and we had so few retirements that it was really just a matter of we don't have many who are resigning, as mid-career.
But the reductions, but you had a 1.0 reduction at Norton, right? So that was something other than Kim and Dave.
Well, you have Tom.
Right. Well, not. Well, sort of.
Oh, no,
Yeah, because Michael's gonna take his spot, but and Michael Moss's section.
So Jim Mock going down from
There you
1.0
go.
to
Okay,
6.
that's
That
sort
was
of
where
what
we
right.
pulled to. We do have one math teacher who.
Well, Natalie's teaching one less class.
Right,
Isn't
Natalie's
Greg
teaching
Lapine
one less. I
going
mean,
down
I don't have the.
That's okay. No, my
What
point
we ended
is-
up doing though is it was.
You're,
What's that?
Lisa, is she going less according to this?
She,
Photo?
I don't know that's actually a change of status. I think that's a continuation. But you're right.
Anyway, the
there's
point
a
is,
section
a little bit
she's-
here, a little bit here, a little bit there. Take it all together.
Actually, maybe you're right. Maybe she is going down one.
Right. So
Yeah.
you cut, right. So you cut the 0.4 elementary, right? And everything.
Right.
was said and
0.4
done.
elementary.
A little bit, but
0.8 at Matilaw,
which is
and
that one section across the floor.
Precisely.
Across the floor.
Right, and then we're looking at 1.2
So there you go.
at Nordoff.
So that's substantial. And then you had, I think, even less special ed, don't you?
Right. So speech.
Amazing. That's like first time I've seen that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we have a reduction in speech therapists. We have a small reduction in resource.
So right. So it's really it's a 4 FTE as a result of 7 or 8 different places.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And all of them are really, again, directly tied to reduction in enrollment, either reduction in special education students are driving the special ed staffing, and reduction in gen ed students are driving, reduction of a single section per core subject area.
And yet, I know you're all excited about the average class size projected in elementary.
Absolutely.
Right, so 25-ish.
Right,
25-ish.
just below 26.
And that
right.
was from 31 to 29 to 27 to 26 to 25. So it's really a nice landing spot.
So we'll be.
Remind me, how many students do you have next year?
19.
Yeah. At the kindergarten.
Right now I can train.
Right. Well, at the kindergarten level, we will have, I believe, at every single kindergarten class, we're looking, other than the San Antonio combo, Summit as well. So the 3 large elementaries, all kindergarten classes are 20 or somewhere in that 19 and 20 student range. Our TK is going to be 20. So we really are actually in the lowest elementary, in TKK, back at class size reduction years.
So just, obviously if we say, no, there's no way we can reduce next year, I'm really thinking ahead to next year to those things we talked about, transportation and those things that we might need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Remind me what this health and welfare is.
So that's actually our medical, dental, vision. So again, medical came in the past 2 years. It was just around 2%, a little less as far as premium increases. This year it came at nearly 8%. So you are seeing certainly a very large increase there. It's not because we're offering more positions that have benefits, but rather because the cost of those benefits are going up.
What does it now cost?
About 17,000, right? Within a few dollars of that.
Does it matter? I keep asking the same question. I'm always unsure about the whole issue of family versus individual.
We have a composite rate, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're single or if you're married with 10 kids. It's the same.
because it's a composite. Is that based on some assessment of the whole pool?
I think that we did even ask about trying to do a tiered, and it was gonna be more expensive, if I remember.
Yeah, so we did get really great information this year from our benefit folks. Looking at if we simply went to a tiered rate, it would cost us about $50,000 more per year. So no question, based on current enrollment, we wouldn't naturally do that. The reason to do that would be potentially to set up the possibility of having an employee contribution to benefits at some point in the future, and that would obviously be a negotiated item, and we have the benefits committee that can come together to look at. But by going from the best rate we can have is what we've done currently, which is having a composite rate and having a requirement that all employees who are eligible for benefits to actually receive them. Those are the two things, though, that can be altered. You could have less than 100% requirement to receive benefits. When we got that information, it ended up being over $200,000 increase in expense based on that rate structure. So the only way that you do that is if you were offering some sort of cash in lieu option for employees. Encourage them to take a $3,000 or $4,000 extra cash payment per year in exchange for not taking our $18,000 medical benefit option. So we've looked at that information. It certainly is going to be something that we'll be discussing with the both bargaining units, but any other arrangement that we have now would be more expensive.
Gold, bronze, silver, right? I mean, right now we're offering the gold. So negotiating items would be a possibility, moving to
certainly the plan that we actually have, CISC no longer even publishes that exact plan. We've had this one for so long that it would not be offered to a new district wanting to request it. And so certainly we will have that as a topic, as well as do we maintain that same plan or alter it in some way, and there's a number of ways it could be altered.
So I assume the reason why the proviso exists that everyone who's eligible as an employee is on it is because they don't want us cherry picking the sick like any other plan. They want us to pay
Exactly.
for everyone to be on it.
Right.
They want us to pay the maximum.
Exactly.
And they don't want the obvious thing to occur where somebody who's more likely to be sick are the ones who are on the plan and those who aren't.
Precise. I mean, and certainly for our youngest teachers and classified staff who could still be on a parent's plan,
right.
Those are the people that they want in their risk pool, and
right.
Those are the ones who would certainly love an extra $4,000 cash payment. And so the people most likely to take those cash in lieu options are the ones that they need in their risk pool to make it most financially viable. Right, precisely.
Or they have a spouse that has a great plan.
Or
there's those.
Right, absolutely, that as well. So jumping to the bottom line for next year, you'll see on page 9 of 13, our total net decrease, which means we are running a deficit next year. You can find that in the, again, middle set of data, about the middle part of the actual information, almost the exact middle point of the data. So net increase, decrease, it's immediately above beginning balance or above the highlighted cells. You'll see that our deficit for next year in the unrestricted funds is $967,000, so nearly $1 million deficit. The reason that we can run such a deficit is you'll see immediately below that we're looking to begin the year with a nearly $2.3 million reserve, and so we'll be spending down that reserve to approximately $1.3 million. From that $1.3 million, you can see the numbers below it are the carve-outs or the calls on those funds, including the reserve for economic uncertainties that we are fully funded at 3%. And so if you go all the way to the bottom of the center column, you'll see the $428,000 is the actual unappropriated, unrestricted fund balance projected for next fiscal year.
So about 1.5%, give or take.
Right, 1.5% in excess of the
3%.
required 3%, exactly.
Pretty tight.
We've already touched on the multi-year projection. The only thing I'll say there is I won't actually go into any of the charts, but on page 10 of 13, you'll see nearly the bottom of the information that we do have personnel reductions that in order to create a balanced budget in both 1819 and 1920, there would need to be significant reductions in expenditures. We identify on this page that those be personnel reductions. Obviously, it wouldn't be required that they be exclusively personnel, but we still are running a very bare minimum non-personnel related budget, and so it would be challenging to have too much of those reductions come from non-personnel. It would
And how
largely.
many people is that? That 879 or that 811? Absolutely.
You know, we'll make sure that for the June 27th approval that we actually normally have a column that, you know, that is below here on this page that has the actual FTE. Do you remember, Patty?
That's all right. That's fine.
Roughly speaking, what that would work out to be?
Not at the top of my head, no.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I just want to be sure that we say it, that those numbers in parentheses in 1819, 1920 are the result of the negotiated increase in the 16-17 salary schedule, therefore no increase beyond the 16-17 schedule in 17-18, 18-19, or 19-20.
That's correct.
Correct?
So Wendy, that 800,000 each year, that's cumulative, right? So that's 1.6 over 2 years.
Right. Right. So one thing I hit upon in my memo, just for those in the audience and those watching at home, remind everyone that we were at, up until a few months ago, as the numbers started to come in, projecting this incoming kindergarten class. We were hoping, based on the Delinka Group, their projection was supposed to be a unusually large cohort, again tied to the birth rates, 5 and 6 years ago, and what they'd found using their regression analysis of the correlation between birth rates in our community and matriculation to kindergarten. Unfortunately, that just did not bear out. What we're looking at right now, as of just a few days ago, we're at 150 students enrolled. At this point in the year, that would typically say that we'll be at somewhere in the low 160s by the time school actually starts up. At this point in the year, we don't get that many more registrations. And so we're looking at a kindergarten cohort nearly identical to the past 3 years of kindergarten cohorts, of right in that 160 to 165 range, whereas Delinka was projecting 218, and we were and just a reminder, Delinka also used the 218 as their baseline for all future projections from there, and so I think we've said it many times over the past 2 years, but that's once and for all say that we know with certainty Delinka's analysis, while it was done to the best that they could have done with the information they had 2 years ago, is going to prove to be off by a couple hundred.
Right, they were 2471 out of 20, 21, 22 in that range, and now you're looking at about 200 less.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can also imagine that economic factor is so much more forceful than the kind
Well,
of
Andy,
stuff they were looking at.
we had over lunch today, and
Right.
he was just talking about his neighborhood and the difference in purchase price, between when you came here 2 years ago,
2 years ago.
and what it is now. I mean, just extraordinary.
Yeah, more than 20% increase in our neighborhood.
And I was even thinking, Shelley talking about all the kids who get on the bus, but you guys are going to be staying there, and so pretty soon all those kids are going to be graduating, and it's going to be a senior.
Need to move, Shelley.
I have to say, grandkids are moving in. So
Good. But the
For what
prices
that's
are
worth.
prices are extraordinary.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is the problem with our kind of housing development is we bought instead of rent, and so we'll be there for a while. And once they turn over, they're no longer low income.
Oh, I thought they had to remain.
We need a financial crisis that brings extra money to the school district.
What does that look like?
That's very unusual.
That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Any other questions on the budget?
Did we open a public hearing?
We did not.
There you go. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. May I have a motion to open a public hearing on the budget?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Would anyone like to speak?
Anybody awake?
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed. Thank you. Resolutions. Again, a suggestion from me to take them all at once unless there's specific ones that you all would like to discuss or need. Shelley, this is new for you, these resolutions.
Yeah,
They're-
can I go back real quick?
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna put it out there, I'm curious about at what point we discuss parcel taxes or the like.
Under
I'm
future board agenda items, probably.
Yeah, I think I'm all for it, and I think we need to talk about it for the election of 2018.
When we get all the progressives out to vote.
Just putting it.
Item for future agenda.
It's your,
So,
has merit, has merit.
So I would think, Shelley, a lot of these are, we've learned over the last 2.5 years, what these are for. But if you have specific questions to ask Andy about them, or if you already have in an email and.
I'm lost as to where we are.
So the resolution, 7.4.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
8.
No, I did look through them, I'm good.
I'll move to approve them.
Okay, 7.4, sorry, 0.2 through 0.8. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Ron, finally, 7.4.9, Measure J projects.
All right, everybody, Measure J update for you. We got the Nordup Gym locker room roof project. The bidding is in, complete. It came in at $510,300. We're asking for an additional contingency fund just to be prudent, which would raise the actual board approval price to $530,300. I'm not expecting to have to do that, but it's always prudent to have that in place in case we need it to take care of minor items. Anyway, we're hoping to have the board approve that tonight and get the process going and get the contract completed, and we can move on from there. And we have our time budgeted out very carefully, so it should work out just fine. Cafeteria stage plans are complete, and initial work will be confined mainly to the interior portions. So work can begin shortly after regular school is out, where it won't have much impact on anybody in the summer school. And most of that work's going to be done by in-house personnel, so we don't have any issues with the fingerprinting and all the other items. So that should work out fine, and then by the time we work outside, then summer school will be over, and then we don't have the issues for that. And its projected cost to be $80,000, $38,000 from OEF, and that's mostly going for the lighting portion of it. We're letting them take care of that, and we're picking up the balance of the actual construction cost, etc. New electrical panel and associated wiring for that. Nordup Welding Shop, we finally gotten a ventilation system vendor that we can use that actually is going to perform exactly what we need it to. From the Miller Welding Company, an excellent welding equipment company. They'll begin constructing, each system is constructed on a case-by-case basis because every welding shop's different. And that will begin as soon as we get the requisitions in place, which they are being drawn up as we speak. So we're just about ready to go there. That'll be done this summer also. We're getting approximately $50,000 from grant monies from, I'm not sure exactly what the number is for the continuing education.
Career
program.
Technical
It used to be ROP.
Right, yeah. Career Technical Ed, it's the
there.
VC Innovate money that they're $50,000 is going toward this.
And we're picking up the balance for that, and we're also doing in-house the wiring for it and air compressor system that cleans out the particulates and eliminates that for the filters. Attila Hub Gym locker room, we just approved the money for the engineering for getting it submitted to DSA for approval for the metal roofing on that. So that's coming in down the pike there. Project costing about $350,000.
That's the architect's cost? Or
No,
that's
this is a projected cost for the actual installing the roof with all the soft hard costs. So this is,
And I think we talked about that this needs DSA because you're doing
yes,
something
because
different.
they allow anything equivalent roofing to put on if you go, except for metal or a heavier type tile roof or something like that would affect the structure. Jason from Garland, he could probably help us out as far as the requirements for metal roofing.
Yeah, metal roofing has a slightly different view as far as DSA goes, so all that has to go through DSA. Saying we're not really adding any weight to it, but DSA will want to see it. The good thing is that that roofing system has a random data in a way, which is a most stringent standard testing done already. So DSA is aware of that. It's a widely accepted testing for that system, so it will streamline the process.
And you're from where?
From Garland. I'm the roofing manufacturer.
Oh, cool.
Gee, I'm sorry you had to be here this late. Oh my
A
goodness.
really good sport. He's been incredibly helpful as far as the Nordoff Gym, the Miners Oaks resurfacing, et cetera, and helping me with all the paperwork and just keep me going with the specs and all that kind of stuff for the architect.
You were nodding so much. I was thinking you were a voter. I was like, this guy loves me.
He'll be joining our community now after all. This is wonderful. So he's been incredibly helpful with it. So I've got to give him a lot of credit for all the smooth process we have here. Then we move on to Topa Topa Kitchen. We got our first environmental health review with a few corrections that kind of delaying the start of construction, but most of that's been taken. I just gave the information to R&T, our architects, who are drawing up the plans to resubmit for them. It wasn't as bad as we thought. We had to put in an extra hood, and they wanted an air curtain and a few miscellaneous other, better water heater than we just put in, so we have to deal with that. But nothing that's insurmountable. It just takes a little bit more time. So but I'm still optimistic we're going to get that done by this summer also. A little bit of a glitch. But that's normal for environmental health. They come up with the wildest things. We just have to deal with them. Miners Oaks roofing restoration project, which you voted on, I believe, last time, is ready to go, and we're anticipating no problems with that. That was $153.40. The modular classrooms, I've got the low bid is $28,850 for the actual removal. There's another about $6,000 with the asbestos testing and abatement of that stuff. So we're running about $32,000, I believe.
Which that comes in considerably less than Balfour Beatty's prior estimate of about $93,000. They were low 90s is what they were projecting.
Correct.
The cost of that removal. So
we're coming
we were
in,
quite pleased to have it come in so much
the
lower.
Nordoff roof was projected at 700. It's coming in at 510, 300. So we're doing pretty good as far as getting our prices down and reasonable, and still getting an excellent product for that. We have 30-year warranties on the roofs, except for the Miners Oak. That's a restoration. It's only 10, which if we take care of it, will last considerably longer. CH Auditorium here, and the painting of the grounds maintenance building is complete. The painting's done, and the bench tiling is really gorgeous out there. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see the bench tiling. Some good money was spent on it, but it really turned out well. The tiler really did a nice job. All I have left is the rain gutters, and they will as soon as we get the paperwork complete for that. So we're going to get matching rain gutters. It still has that half-round mission style look to it. Coming in at $900 for that, so that's considerably less than, I think, Balfour Bay had like $3,300. So we're doing pretty good on everything. One of the items that were brought up by a board member, Mr. Shanahan, was provide a Measure J information package on the website. We have Dave here. He's got a kind of a
Visual.
There you go. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Word there. Visual part. We just met on Monday and we started putting together pictures and ideas. Certainly not complete, but we're looking at projects, including a brief description, anticipated start date, completion date, project cost, estimated bid price, ongoing project status with photos we're looking at, and final cost to completion. David, our guru here, he's doing the heavy lifting for me, and he'll give you a little run through what we have.
Yeah, so the idea that Ron brought to me is that we would keep this document going from beginning of project to end, and it would grow. Basically, once Ron updates it, or myself, maybe one of my team members, you'd be able to click on it and it would instantly be updated with the appropriate information. So our minor results re-roof project, for example, we included the map, what's being roofed in green, a little scope there that details every element. Of course, on your computer screen, it'll be a little bit clearer. Project scope as of 6/26. Things do change in large projects like this, so we can provide updates. August 1, that things changed, and here's what's changed since then. We have project expenditures. That's just a made-up project expenditures for a larger project. This one's going to be one line. I just threw some Latin in there for fun. What we can do, again, review comments and kind of keep people updated on what's going on in every project. Project schedule, again, we'll just be able to comment on it. People will probably want to know why things are delayed or changed, and this is how we can really keep track of change orders. And what's beautiful about this document is it actually will help Ron and I and Russ to keep on the same page as well. So it's not only project management for ourselves, but a way that everyone can kind of follow along at home. So we went out and took some pre-construction photographs. We just kind of include the basics. It took 30 something pictures, but I really condensed it down to just like 4 or 5 that were really going to show the gist of the project. And then of course the next update next slide will be during photos, during construction, that sort of thing, and then final project assembly photos. So I think it'll be a really easy way to keep everybody updated.
Are these just on the district site or are they on each individual school site?
So currently they're just on the district site. I can actually show you, wanted to actually walk you guys through what we set up. We did a Measure J landing page that we're going to build out in depth and kind of list out every site, the projects that are slated for those sites, and a little information for the public. We have a projects section, and then we also have the existing COC citizens oversight that people can go back and kind of learn how we got here and that sort of thing. So I'll bring those up really fast.
And at the COC meeting, it was recommended that we access like Spectrum and Ojai Valley News, so people who don't have computers or don't wish to use computers and stuff, so they can keep up to date on what items Measure J is paying for and what we're getting how we're spending our money, and kind of make a lot of clarity and transparency for projects and stuff like that. And that way everybody knows where the money's going, why, and how, and kind of get oversight. And Mr. Daddy, who said he had to in with Spectrum, that you could probably get it on maybe the Channel 10 page, something like that, and have readouts and stuff. And of course, having maybe a reporter come out monthly or something like that, and just kind of have a monthly report on what Measure J is producing and how it works.
Yeah, what might take that off somebody's plate would be to maybe somebody in the COC would be willing to write a monthly update and have it come from them, which would be even more authoritative, right?
The idea of the website is to make it
Joshua Griffin told me he's got tons of experience.
Well, he mentioned it. Anyway, the idea of the website is to make it as comprehensive and everybody gets a piece of the pie and all inclusive as we can.
I think it can only help us if we do go for a parcel.
I totally agree.
anyway, it's a work in progress right now, but that's where we're headed, and we've got quite a bit done on it right now. So.
About the landing page?
This is the main structure you see. We have Measure J projects, Measure J citizens oversight, which just takes you to the existing page.
These are cool.
Yeah.
This is our landing page.
So we just kind of a welcome and kind of an oversight of what Measure J is about, and I took it basically off the what was put on the ballot measure and massaged it a little bit just to make it fit this venue. And basically it just tells what it is, what it's got, what it's meant to be used for, and then we have the Citizens Oversight Committee place we can drill down to them.
Yeah.
We've got our pictures there, just basically generic pictures of different projects.
And what I would like to try and do is underneath each school site where we list our photo, we'll actually have a running tally of all the projects that are going to be covered in the hearing. And at least we can have some idea, we can put a date next to them. That way you know that for example, just one is thin air, but the library project may start July 1 of 2019. That way people at a glance can kind of walk and see what's planned and what actually may be completed once we start. And I'll show you the projects as well. Just a very basic rundown of every project. We're going to add a column for proposed expenditures and encumbered. That way you can kind of follow along with each project. And then a final column will be where that little slideshow is presented and that you can keep track of the current project progress. Really easy to manage, but a lot of information.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of information.
Well, Mike, I don't get this much result when I. Yeah, I'm very jealous.
Really impressive.
Excellent. Anyway, that's basically all I have for this evening, other than I would hope that you would be so kind as to vote for this contract.
We need an action on the roofing.
I just say, I don't think I'm wrong that Alfred Baby thought that roof was going to cost quite a bit more, right?
Right, so their lowest estimate was $750 or so, but then the one that we were working on for a while was over $1 million.
This is such good news.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all your work, everybody.
No, it's actually not that hard. It's just you put your mind to it and doing the research and everything is coming together. And like I said, with Jason himself and everybody else, all the manufacturers come together and really working out well.
What did we end up doing with the ventilation? Is that part of this yet, or is that going to be something later?
Ventilation for the shop?
For the gym at Nordock.
That's separate.
There was some question about what would happen with that. And
everything's going to remain the same.
Okay.
No, nothing changing as far as that.
I think at one point, one of Balfour's proposals involved some pretty expensive ventilation.
That was when it went up to like 1.8.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
No, I
don't want to use a technical
not on
term,
my
but I think
radar
it's
right now. They've got what they got right now.
Air treatment.
We're with you.
Yeah. So when Balfour Beatty presented that was where it approached nearly $2 million as an expense. And
yeah, right on. I'd like to move to approve this first really major contract in Measure J with a lot of enthusiasm.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye. We have a winner.
None
Thank you
opposed.
ever so much.
Yay.
All right. Good meeting.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Dave.
Congratulations. Very good.
Okay, so we have a decision to make. I only have about 5 comments in the policy updates, but Hank has asked if we are tired and want to go home, we can certainly move the policy updates to another meeting. We don't need to do
I
them
predict that
tonight.
June 26th will be less intensive.
Not a lot of retirement.
No, we don't have that. We don't have that. You already did the budget. I mean, I don't foresee. I don't foresee much.
So
on
you're
that
all right
date.
if we postpone it?
I'm fine with that. I only had a couple of weeks.
We will postpone to the next meeting, the 7.5.1. Superintendent's report.
Well, I'm going to follow Andy's lead, who followed my lead. So I'm now, right. I am now truncating a truncate. That's a double truncate, which means it's short. And the good news is that I've actually, for what I wanted to say tonight, I've given about half of my report already, because what I want to talk to you about, obviously, was discussed with the changes at the high school. And Kevin attended the meeting, a couple of afternoons, yesterday afternoon, when each of us, Cheryl, Andy, Dave, Greg, Kim and I all had a chance to speak. And so I want to be sure I get my words right here. My view of the five of them, which I tried to articulate at the meeting, was a combination of real pride, and I say this in the most positive sense of this word, a sort of a paternal view, not paternalistic, paternal, as I have watched, tens of people move into positions over the years, and as I look at this age range, actually Dave Monson, he's the old man. He's 49, and Andy's in that 31 range. So there's about a 2-decade or so range at various points in that continuum. And of course, two are leaving, but others are stepping up. One position yet to fill, right? New director of special education, all the elementary changes that you mentioned. So I really view, I've tried to have the time for superintendent's report reflect on what the major issues were at the particular meeting that preceded, in the parts of the meeting that preceded my report. Right now, I really see this as just a significant sea change in people, places, yet to be determined how different the leadership will be. But the main point for me, as I tried to express this to the staff at Nordhoff, is that going back 5 years, and I said this a little today, going back 5 years, there have been 5 people with Cheryl and Andy coming in that 5-year period, who I always felt were going to be doing things more challenging, bigger, broader in terms of responsibilities whenever they happened to come. As I came to know them, obviously, I didn't feel that necessarily immediately with Cheryl and Andy, but it was pretty obvious soon thereafter. So what I would say is that this board, which is presently constituted and I expect will be predominantly constituted in the 2018-20 plus range, given the new leadership, I really am very optimistic about the intersections of new leader with schools, new district office person taking on responsibilities that existed about 10 years ago, right, and then dissipated, right? There was an assistant superintendent for education stuff, right? And obviously with a very different background in the superintendency. I think that combination is first rate, and I really do think that what Dave will bring, Andy and I were talking about this before, it's really interesting, and you pointed this out, I hadn't thought of it until you said it. Go back to the days with Dan Music and Greg and Danny and I, am I saying that?
Well, Bill Rosen.
And Bill Rosen, thank you. Bill Rosen, none of us lived in Ohio. Okay? The present construction, everybody will be in Ohio. Everybody. Including Rebecca, of course, Jackie was. But actually, the person who was director of special education when I came to that lived in Ohio. Let me think of it. And that Emily did, but that was just a year. So that's a really positive thing, I think, of having an Ojai-centric leadership group. Because I've experienced that in other places where all or almost all of the leaders live there. And I'm a little biased. I think you can do a fine job not living there. But boy, there's some things that you just miss. I'll save this for a later point in time, maybe August 16th. But there's certain things I just did not do here if they happened on Saturday. I just chose not to drive back out again.
But also have kids in the district.
Well, exactly. Great point,
Not
right.
just
Great point. Do and will, right? Do and will, right? So, absolutely. Yeah, actually, that may be even the most important thing. Because I, in the 9 years, I was telling Dave about this, as his first is coming in, right, to the high school next year. So his first will be the first of, if I have my numbers right, about 9 years or so of Nordhoff experience as the principal. And I had those same 9 years, albeit I was superintendent, but I had those same 9 years. And I was telling Dave, in the 10th year, I still felt connected after my youngest left. Right, you're just experiencing this now, you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And the 11th year, I still felt sort of connected. About year 12, which is the 12th year after my first one was a freshman, it wasn't the same. I didn't know the kids as well. So I think the combination of, being in Ojai, living in Ojai, participating in Ojai, having the kids in the district, and just the talent of the people, I think it's going to be a wonderful confluence in the upcoming however many years it exists. So that's what struck me as we were going through a portion of tonight. The other thing I'll say is I'm really proud of is that half of what we did in the 4 o'clock section didn't exist when I came, and I was really annoyed. I mean, it wasn't a conscious snub. It was just the awards that were given out through 2009, 10. That was my first year. No, actually, that's not true. Through 8, 9, because we changed it my first year. We're only certificated, right? And then we added classified. So now it's equitable. In fact, there's actually one more, and because the district office is only classified, because the only certificated person is yours truly, and I felt that was a little tacky, to get a dinner for 2 every year. I mean, it would have been fine, but it wasn't like I was in great competition with anybody. So anyway, it's just that's sort of what I'm thinking about, at 9:15 tonight, watching all the people move, and I'm just as excited, honestly, for Greg and Kim as I am for Cheryl and Andy, really, and Dave too, but he's already here. But the new people, right? 2 new people doing leadership roles, but also for Greg and Kim, because we had lots of conversations, about how to think about moving out of a place that you'd been in for 20 years. It's not that easy, particularly for Kim, because she has children here. So happy for them, and very happy for my predicted view of leadership in this place in the next, as I said, decade plus. So that's my report.
Items for future agendas. Shelley wants to discuss the parcel tax, but maybe next. When do we start to? I guess it takes about a year.
I was going to say, if you're going to look
In
for
the
something,
fall.
you need to have all thoughts together. And for a parcel tax, now we didn't really start. That's the right verb. I was going to say something. That's right. Informing the community about all the needs. Physically do it, like go out and meet with people. We didn't really do much of that until the September before the November. But it's a way, way easier sell on a bond issue than it is on a tax rate increase. So I would say, you would want to have your, whatever that number is, it takes a lot of financial analysis, but I would say you would want to do some little heavy lifting in the spring of 18. And then everybody takes summer off and come back and do it again, whatever's left to do or to emphasize. In the fall, and just, get all the questions out in the spring, answer them in the summer, and then come out in the fall, 2 full months of meeting with everybody and anybody to have them understand why, you need that increase because the projections are dire. And you will have completely filled out LCFF. Right?
I would love to sell it as seed money in a sense, to really try to create the kind of vibrant place we know it already is, but more so that we might actually bring students in. I mean, Oak Park, there's crazy business out of its area.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying we're going to be them,
We don't have the geographical.
What we have is cachet.
We do, but the one thing I would suggest you do, I just thought of this as I was talking, I would suggest you go down and meet with whomever from Ventura. Because Oak Park and Ventura are the only ones that have passed tax rate increases in the last decade or so. Right? I mean, a lot of people have done Measure J type things. But you got Ventura right there, and they got it, and then they redid it. Right? They got the original one, and then they got an extension. Extensions are not that hard, because so tell people your tax rate won't go up. Well, it would have gone down. They don't say that. So, but I would suggest to meet with them because they did something right, and they didn't pass by a lot. I think they got like 68, 42%. No, I know you didn't, but it's a different economic time.
Right.
Very different.
Does anybody know if there are any other groups out there looking to do this parcel tax in the near future? I know sitting on the library board it had been discussed.
Oh, you mean in Ohio?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it.
The library talks about it often, but I don't imagine that they will be. I just wondered if anybody knew.
The turtle sanctuary.
I've not heard of any. Good question, though. You don't want to be.
You don't want to double.
I would like to work over the summer with you, Andy, and with principals to talk about ways, and whoever on the board can be involved, to one, get more volunteer involvement, and two, do a better job of recognizing our volunteers. They just don't do a good job. One thing that the OSLA actually noticed was that at all these music events, there were many thank yous. Rarely did anyone say anything about the PTAs who were actually paying for a lot of the music.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, two things I'd say. Remember, don't forget Thane, right? Because he was the board member who stepped up back when we were talking about board leadership.
Yeah.
So Thane would want to participate in that. You're right.
That was one of our categories. Yeah.
I did raise the issue of having another recognition of predominantly, it's called parent volunteers. And we decided to do it every 2 years, so this was the off year. So, but you could do it every year. It's.
But if you think, I mean, it's not our. Obviously, we all agree.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. You can't say thank you enough.
All right, consent calendar.
No, it's not consent. Yeah, it's consent calendar. 8.4.5. I want you to just take a quick look at the $10,000 donation. Kathy, you did a little research on this.
We did find out that it was a family who owns a insurance business. Came from Beverly Hills, moved here several years ago.
That's what we need.
Yeah, the last
like 100
of
of them.
The last of their 2 students is graduating next week.
From Norda.
From Norda.
Yeah, Beverly Hills transplants. Anyway, I just want to make sure we noted that.
And everyone, I should every week
And that's
recognize
okay,
those donations. The Rotary, Topa PTA, Life Touch National, and the Calvin Zara Insurance Agency. So can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, in case there's something.
Good night.